And hello, everybody. What's going on? Welcome to another show. I'm going to be doing a couple reviews here. This one's is going to be a little bit more selfish of me because I'm going to be going over a video that Clubhouse Debates here dropped, one of his Keeping Up with JRobin ones, and I'm not sure why. I didn't get the explanation as to why he uses that. That's Kim Kardashian, I believe. There, why he uses that with JRobin, but. Um, I'm sure there's an explanation for the joke. Anyway, um, J. Robin hasn't been. I don't know if he's been how active he's been on Clubhouse, but because half the time I'm banned by some of these guys, and the other time I'm not. So sometimes I get notifications if I'm following one or all of them, and sometimes I don't. And Darth. Darth's pretty consistently banned me, so if he happens to show up to one of these guys' rooms, to get his you know, um, daily ball fondling done, then I can't watch them or I don't get the notifications anymore. So I probably shouldn't use that ball fondling term so soon into this. Otherwise, now it's not going to get monetized. Um, anyway, the so he I was actually I was listening to a couple of different Clubhouse things while I was working. I had them going in the background, and then a few people that I knew were in the chat for a room that JRobin had up, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and I was actually able to go into it as an audience member, which surprised me. So that means Darth hadn't been there, or I beat him to it or something. Um, so I was just listening in, and then kind of half listening, half working. Well, all working, but half listening, and then I would see chats roll through from different people, and I'd comment on stuff. Well, I was listening to a little while, and J. Robin he gets into a conversation with a guy, and after he gets done, I think he felt that he owned this guy. He becomes interested in a comment that I wrote, and then he decides to call me out and establishes a really weird idea. For those of you who aren't in the know, some of this is some clubhouse, drama crap that no one has to give two shakes about because it's just, it's just pointless. But I think it's a pretty good illustration of what is going on with our lad J. Robin and how coke-addled insane he's become with some of his performative fundamentalism. And that term, performative fundamentalism, I don't have trademarked. I heard that from somebody else, but uh, that was actually used in one of the comments that triggered him. And man, does he get triggered. And for whatever reason, I had the time and I was ready to go on a break from work, took the time to go in there to listen to this. Basic spoiler alert: J. Robin decides to chew me out like he thinks he's my boss, right? Like step into my office because you're effing fired, kind of thing. So yeah, lots of fun. So anyway, hey chat, hey everybody in the live chat. It's good to see everybody that's here. Glad there's a lot of you here this morning. I'm actually surprised. Um, Doubting Thomas, good to see you. Always glad when you show up. Doubting Thomas, we used to hang out back when I first started in YouTube, and my brother kind of got me involved in it. So I'm always glad to see him in the live chat. And Red Fang, good to see you, Red Fang. Um, and of course, hello to everybody else. I won't bore everybody by naming everybody individually, but thank you all for being here live. Um, so yeah, I guess we're just going to get into this. Nothing too much going on. This one's not that long. After this, I'll have to kind of adjust this one. This one probably will not get monetized because the second video that I'm going to get into to riff on this, there's going to be kind of a theme here, and it's going to be about Christians getting wackier, and it's going to be about J. Robin's behavior, which is out of control. John Lee, who's another kind of clubhouse personality that, damn it, Tom Rabbit, if you are listening, like I've avoided any kind of interest in John Lee as like a, a failed and yet still attempting apologist. But that guy is just, he says some of the most ignorant stuff I've ever seen in my life. Just flat out ignorant as hell. And I've got a video that we're going to be jumping in from him. And because it involves his comments on the most recent Texas shooting, at least I hope it's the most recent one. Who knows? One may be going on now. I haven't checked the news in the last 15 minutes. Stupid country. We'll see if we'll see how bad that one gets. I'm not going to watch all of that one because everything that John Lee says is just blatantly stupid and disgusting. But it's worth pointing out just to kind of like compare and contrast um, where he's going and like where JRobin is, because there's definitely, I think, a trajectory there, a common trajectory. Um, and apologies for talking about the shooting in any way. Everybody has strong feelings about it. I'm not a gun prohibitionist, so if you're right wing or a gun nut, don't worry about that. I'm not a huge advocate for that. That being said, though, if the country decides to just like whiplash and ban all guns, I wouldn't care about that either. Like I don't have a gun in that fight. So, but that being said, before getting into too much into politics, we will start up with this. I'm not going to speed this up. There's a lot more to this video, and I've shared it in the description. He has a brief exchange with me at the beginning, so I'll play some of that just because hey, it's my channel, so I'm just going to focus on me because I'm a jerk and self-obsessed. But the rest of it's worth. It might be interesting to anybody who wants to watch him get involved with a conversation with a guy. He gets into a conversation briefly with Hogtie Champ, but Hogtie Champ ends up having a conversation, I think, with somebody else. I think some of that's there. I'm not entirely sure. This room was on for something like 9 hours, maybe, or maybe that was the room the night before. I don't know how long it was on. But JRobin, when he does do these rooms, he seems to host them for quite a while. That seems to be becoming a thing. Like a club will kind of, I think people are just handing them off to each other. So I don't know that it's JRobin just in there for 9 hours straight. It's like they tag each other in. So with that, I've babbled enough. I hope I've said hello to everybody. I think I've got all the maintenance and stuff done. The one thing I did not do, I did not play really didn't get this started because I didn't play an intro. So I'm going to do that now. So we're officially starting now. I like a cold open, so I think that kind of works. Anyway, and anybody let me know if if I'm having any audio issues or anything like that, or if I'm breathing into the mic. This particular mic loves to pick that up. Um, yeah, Black as Jake, love all the different intros. He actually dropped a new one. Brandon McBee, the guy that made those intros for me, was nice enough to build all that kind of stuff and the icons and stuff. With the exception of my trademark in the bottom right corner, that is GeoSam's. That's my original one. That's gonna stay right there. That was my initial little trademark. So props to GeoSam for that one. But everything else, the rest of this design has been from Brandon, and it's all been great. He's got a new one, but I wasn't able to upload this in time. I was too busy ranting in my head about JRobin and his disgusting apologetics or whatever. I'm probably using the word disgusting too much. I might be veering into Smoky Saint territory there. Uh, Smoky Saint. Yeah. Let's see here. All right, let me shrink myself down. We're going to get this started. Please let me know if volume is an issue. I will adjust accordingly. Here we go.
I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not speaking meaningfully about anything, okay? Because I don't know what the words I'm using are referencing.
Um, the room's open yet again. So if any atheist or Christian or anything of the sort wants to come up, if they have any questions, comments, concerns, um, oh, I do see. Oh, hold on a minute. James. Okay. Well, James. Uh, good afternoon.
What up?
So, are you a
How's it going?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I like how James' greeting perfectly matches his picture. Like that kind of what up, like it's the smiling guy with long hair and a cockatiel on his shoulder. Like it's perfect. It's perfect. And one thing I want to point out too here, because this is how things begin. Like this is how you know that JRobin is 100% fake from the jump, right? James, he already comes across sounding like he is Prozac made manifest as a human being, right? James comes in here like, "Hey, what up, man?" And JRobin actually accentuates the fact that he like I'm pretty sure this is performance too. Like he wants to sound like, if I talk like this, no one can accuse me of losing my shit or being unintelligent because look at me. Would someone who is a raging fundamentalist lunatic with hateful ideology sound like this? I'm a superficial nitwit who expects you to buy this, right? That's JRobin's shtick, right? And he actually he doubles down on that a little bit. He's going to turn on I don't know if he's pushing on the gas or the brakes. I don't know how he gets it done, but he'll dial that up in his performance, thanks to James's enthusiasm right here.
Doing awesome.
Okay. Are you still an atheist?
Yeah,
As
man.
you said you were before? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the day when somebody's like, "No, I've been listening to you, and you're so persuasive that you finally talked me into it." Yeah, I'm still an atheist, for lack of anything. Yeah, because no, actually, Jesus showed up at my house, and we had some beers together, and he laid it out for me. Guess what else he told me? He told me you're a dick.
Last time I asked you to explain how it is that there is no God, you provided a fallacy of reasoning. Are you familiar with that?
A fallacy of reasoning for a dumb question. Okay, let me guess. Was the fallacy of reasoning that he was appealing to an argument from ignorance? Right? I haven't seen a God, therefore there can't be one that exists, right? It doesn't matter that your question it inspires people to make the assumption of you're asking them why they don't believe in God or why they think there is no God, right? You're asking them why there can't be one, you dumb shit. And that's a different switch, right? And if you're asking that question, what you're basically saying is you are setting up your own appeal to ignorance. If you can't tell me why there can't be the God that I'm talking about, then I can just go right on ahead and assume that it's real, from property A through property Z. Not only does that thing possible, it's actual, and everything about it that I've tried to instantiate is actual. That's horseshit. That is a horseshit apologetic. JRobin continues to traffic it, and he continues to get spun up on it, and he's treating it as if like anybody that comes into the room and calls him out on being a hypocritical, superficial idiot about this thing, as if they're the ones you're the one that's crazy. You're the one that doesn't understand. You're being a contrarian. No, JRobin, I think you're actually the contrarian, because the vast majority of Christians would probably not handle this particular take in apologetics all that well, and they shouldn't. Right? It's probably the reason that JRobin doesn't go to church. Or if JRobin goes to a church, this is my bet, if he attends a church, he does so quietly because it's on social media where he puts everybody else on blast. I don't think he's doing this face to face because he's a coward.
Or do you remember that?
I sure
What's the
do.
appeal to ignorance fallacy?
I still hold that same stance. So you can call it a fallacy. I disagree.
Well, do you know what the appeal to ignorance fallacy is?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, what is the appeal to ignorance fallacy?
If you're claiming that my statement is an appeal to ignorance, I disagree.
Look, James, I don't know how it was at least a month ago that we've last had a conversation. You've had all this time to, even if you didn't know it before, to look it up, and I'm shocked that you haven't done so. Okay, the appeal to ignorance.
How does he know he hasn't done so? This is fascinating. This is a fascinating little switcheroo. Like this is trying to dodge a punch that wasn't thrown, right? James is like, no, he's already set this up, like, right? What did he say? It's
fallacy.
Not a...
You're claiming that my statement is an appeal to ignorance. I disagree.
That's all he said. JRobin claimed that James's statement was an appeal to ignorance fallacy. James disagrees, and JRobin says,
look, James, I don't know how it was at least a month ago that we've last had a conversation. You've had all this time to, even if you didn't know it before, to look it up, and I'm shocked that you haven't done so. Okay, the appeal to ignorance.
Now he's assuming that he hasn't looked it up. What about what James just said isn't that, right? What he's actually implying there is like, no, James, it was inevitable. If you looked up what the argument from ignorance is, you would have reached my conclusion. You would have understood that I was right. You would have gotten my point and conceded that to me. But he's saying, oh, you obviously you didn't look it up, because if you looked it up, then you would have reached the same conclusion that I have, that I'm right and you're wrong. Neat trick, JRobin. The reason that he talks like that is because he's a pompous cunt.
Ignorance fallacy, okay, is very simple. Is when somebody asserts something to be true merely on the basis that it has not been demonstrated to be false, or conversely,
Awesome.
that something is false.
Okay.
If
understand it.
in
So
the absence merely.
Right. So asking the question why a God doesn't exist because can be taken two different ways. Why don't you think there is a God? Or why isn't it possible for a God to actually exist? If you mean that question the second way and they can't provide an answer and you use it as justification to go on thinking that the thing that you've speculated about might as well be actual, you are in fact the one engaging in an argument from ignorance. I don't understand why JRobin doesn't get this. It's obvious if you look up the definitions about appealing to ignorance or arguments from ignorance. And he should have reached the conclusion that I'm right and he's wrong. I just don't understand this. Give up Christianity, JRobin. Just look up that fallacy, and you'll see that you were always wrong. Fucking dipshit.
Yeah, let me finish, please, because you didn't look this up. You didn't bother to
How do you fucking know he didn't look it up?
educate yourself on this, so I have to educate you for you.
No, you don't have to fucking educate anyone. You need to get an education first before you can even condescend to attempt to offer education to anyone else. I want to know what JRobin thinks his credentials are. Because if it's just being a fucking all gas, no brakes, fundamentalist Christian whack job, that isn't going to cut it. At least it better not. Now, maybe he lives in Texas, where that shit gets more mileage and traction, but...
So I had to educate you for you, okay? So let me just finish this. It's going to be 5 seconds. Conversely, it's that something is false merely on the basis that it hasn't been proven true, okay? That was the essence of your argument against the existence of God, okay? So what I want to know from you...
That wasn't his argument. When you ask that question and you don't make the distinction between whether or not you're asking for someone's reasons for disbelief and asking for an argument against the possibility of the God, if you don't make that distinction, then you can straw man that person any which way you want. That's what JRobin's counting on. James didn't offer an argument. You asked him, why doesn't God exist? And he says, well, I don't think that there's evidence that appeals to me that shows that there could be one. Therefore, that's his reason for disbelief. But because JRobin won't commit to his argument, to that question, he just wants to sit in this particular territory and bludgeon people with their inability to understand his vagary. And that's dishonest, uncharitable bullshit. It is bullshit. I don't understand why JRobin can't understand that he is the villain in this act and in these plays. This is what evil people do. They work with confusion. They use deception. They slither around the margins. They strawman. They prevaricate. They equivocate. All the things that they project that their skeptics and their atheists and all these other faiths do to them. He is actively engaging in this. If you don't want someone to misunderstand you, ask clear questions. Don't ask dumb, vague questions and then expect somebody to offer you a fucking logical syllogism. God doesn't exist because? That's not setting up an honest, legitimate discourse, right? That's just setting up a casual conversation about why I don't believe in something. If you want something more nuanced, you need to be more nuanced from the jump. JRobin fucking knows this. And I know for a fact he knows this, because he's looked it up. He can't conclude it any other way, right, JRobin?
Is... 1, do you accept that that's a fallacy? 2, are you willing to admit that that was the argument that you're using?
I'm not sure I quite understand you. What have I...
Is JRobin willing to admit to the fallacy of strawmanning him? That's a fallacy, and he's actively doing that. He hasn't established that that's what James was doing. Is James offering an argument for the impossibility of the existence of a God, or is James offering his reasons for why he doesn't believe in a God? Categorically two different things.
I interjected that I said, what have I interjected that I said that is true?
You said it was the case that there was no God on the basis that God had not been demonstrated to be real. It doesn't follow that if you deem that God hasn't been demonstrated to be existent.
I actually said a lot more than that. I said a lot more than that. I have a hypothesis.
Fine. We'll do it again. We'll do it again. There is no God because...
Again, JRobin, what do you mean by that? This is a stupid question. It's a deliberate... When I've asked him to clarify which one he means, he just starts shrieking. He'll go back to this question as if it's perfectly formed. When people have pointed out to him ad nauseum, I have done it on videos. Other people have done this on their videos. They've done it to his face. They've done this in conversations with him and said, what are you looking for? Do you want an argument for why a God is impossible, or do you want my reasons for why I don't believe? Categorically two different things. I don't believe in God because I think he's not real. I think it's a story that humans made up. If you want my argument for why the God you're talking about, doesn't exist, I would say it's the best argument that I've come up with is the impossibility of the existence of the ultimate as defined by JRobin. That being has too many contradictions to exist in actuality. Both questions answered. Will JRobin acknowledge that I've answered his question? In both ways? No. And he won't acknowledge even people attempting to answer the question when they have taken it to mean the other way, which is, tell me what your reasons for disbelief are.
Based on my hypothesis, I firmly believe there is no God or gods or anything supernatural based on if we are calling this said God a supernatural entity. We currently don't have anything to test and verify this question mark. Once we are able to test it, it now is testable and it comports with our natural realm. Therefore, it's no longer considered supernatural. Therefore, it loses its God quality and supernatural quality. Therefore, my hypothesis stands: no God or gods or supernatural exists. That's my hypothesis.
That's the textbook appeal to ignorance fallacy. Okay, and you
That is not. Like, I don't know that I'm entirely convinced by the argument that James is attempting to lay out, but I think if I get the gist of it, and if James is here, if he watches this later, James, please contact me if I'm getting this right or if I'm getting it totally wrong. But it sounds like to me, like, a God doesn't exist because, and for James, it's like, well, because if we're talking about existence, we're talking about something that is extant in the world around us. And most things that are extant in the world around us are, this is where things I think get a little bit touchy, right? They're empirically verifiable to an extent, right? That's going to be a tough one, right? Because there are things that probably exist in our natural world that are not, as of yet, empirically viable. So a God could actually exist in our reality and not be empirically viable yet, right? But I think James' point is, if it does exist, then to some degree it should be empirically viable, verifiable, right? I think I've been saying empirically verifiable to some degree, right? And Bible stories talk about that being the case, right? Testing the spirits, or the prophets doing things like demanding to soak to wood soaked in water to burst into flames, and it didn't. The prophets of Baal or the prophets of whatever couldn't get it to happen, right? There was some kind of verification thing that you could do in the here and now that would prove the existence of this God. There was something verifiable. That thing, wherever it is, whatever it is, interacting with the mundane world that we exist within. And James is saying, but because we don't have that, let's say that we do. Now, we do prove that thing is, there is something out there that can be verifiable, well, then it changes its category altogether. Now it's no longer in the category of being supernatural. We have something that is empirically falsifiable, and we have some empirical tests that we can do on this thing. It's now living in a natural world, so its category has changed, so it's also not God either, definitionally. I think that's kind of where James is going with this. I think there's lots of weaknesses with this. I've heard other people kind of present arguments like this. I don't think the notion of trying to approach argue, especially with these guys, guys like JRobin, who are coming at it from like either like a bitched up version of tag or a bitched up version of presup or whatever else they're running with. They're trying to run it on this whole metaphysical grounds where they flipped the emphasis of metaphysics on its head, and they're starting with metaphysics and then assuming reality is thus and so from the metaphysics, as opposed to allowing the natural world that we have to serve as the foundation for how we figure out what's foundational. What you have with empiricism is descriptions of how and by what means, right? You can measure it, you can see it, you can weigh it. But that doesn't get you to the what, and it doesn't get you to the why, right? And empirical sciences generally know this, right? Or at least they should. Philosophical pursuits usually try to get into the questions of, like, what is that really? What does it ultimately mean, and why is it the way that it is? Empiricism doesn't really necessarily concern itself with that, because that's not what empirical science is about. It's about testing it and measuring it and comparing and contrasting it. I think there's a real weakness with doing this, but I think what James is bringing up is it's not necessarily an appeal to ignorance. He's basically saying, look, I think James might be an empiricist. As an empiricist, I need something that I can measure. And you're asking me why this God can't exist. There isn't anything to measure. So I'm going to run with this conclusion that it doesn't exist. And I also think that the way that you've set this God up, as soon as there was something for me to test, if that's verifiable in an empirical sense, it immediately loses the category distinction of being supernatural, and therefore violates what you initially set up, which is that God is a supernatural being beyond our understanding. So either way, James wins. JRobin is not going to do what I just did and attempt to talk about what James just laid out. This is what he's going to do instead.
You used like half the words you used were words that I never even brought up in this conversation. James, please don't overtalk me. James.
JRobin has been talking the majority of the time, and this is his room. The number of times he says, "Don't overtalk me," rivals the amount of times that Dart does.
I'm
Please
asking
don't
you a
overtalk me.
question. I'm
Okay,
asking
let me
you a
just finish,
question.
please. Let me just finish. Let me just finish. Okay, we've done this. We've done this charade. I don't even know how many
Yeah.
times.
JRobin admitting that he's lying, right? Right? We've done this charade. Who's at fault for this being a charade? I know that that shade cast at James, but it just as easily could be cast right back at JRobin. You maybe don't want to don't talk about the interaction you're having with another person as being false or pantomime or charade or disingenuous, and then just expect people to sort of like, oh, well, I mean, I know that he's implying that it's anybody else's fault but his because accountability and responsibility are not things that JRobin. Those are not those are not things that he's going to assume, right? Not even in a conversation. He's too chicken shit and spineless for that. He can't even engage in that. He's going to cast these aspersions on somebody and not even really do it in a direct way. He's going to characterize their exchange as a charade. Fine. It's a charade because of the way it started, and because it's JRobin's room, he's the one responsible for it being a charade.
And we've gone in
So
circles.
I
Okay. So
wasn't
look,
gonna appeal to
let me explain.
ignorance.
Let me explain, please. Okay. All right. What you just gave is the textbook appeal to ignorance fallacy. Not to mention that half the words you used weren't even words that were even brought up in this conversation, like supernatural and etc. Okay, we're not even talking. We're not even talking about that right now. All God means, okay, if you want, you can call it supernatural or not. Okay, all God refers to is a being, a mind, okay, that exists. It's unembodied, of course, it's not a physical mind, but that exists and that is the source and basis of all things that are. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
That's all. That's all God means in this conversation.
Right, and that's not an argument. That's just a definition and a claim.
Okay.
So the claim is that this God exists, and now he's given some definitions of what that thing is. There is no argument for why it is this way yet from JRobin, and there's no demonstration that this thing exists in the way that JRobin is describing.
Okay, great. So
let me finish. Let me finish, please.
Holy
Exercise
crap.
a little bit of self-control. Just a little bit. I
I
let you
have
talk.
self-control. I want to converse with you.
Okay.
I want to converse with you.
So what you're telling me, I want to give a rebuttal to what you're saying. Okay. What you are telling me is that because God, according to you, is not testable, therefore God does not exist. Is that what you're telling me?
That's not what I said. No.
Okay, then you're not answering the question, because the question I asked you is, how is it there is no God? No, James, you did not. No, James, you did not. Because the question I asked you, what I asked you, James.
Holy shit, you're hard to talk to. You don't listen.
He's impossible to talk to. That's it. Hard doesn't even begin to get it. I'm trying to figure out why this mic is not really doing its job today. But yeah, JRobin is. I mean, he's not interested in a conversation. That's the best way I can put it. So yeah, I checked my volume levels. I think they're probably okay. Crow Mini Clouds, you had said that it sounds like I might be quieter compared to the video, so I do apologize for that. But I've adjusted them about as well as I can. So.
James, I'm answering your question. You just told me to repeat back to you what you said. I'm telling you right now.
Thanks, Michael North, for showing up. Yeah, I totally understand not being able to listen to JRobin here because he's awful. He's a fucking terrible human being. And this condescending, I'm going to chew you out like I'm your boss or I'm your father or your mother. Like I'm going to call you out because your belief system is infinite. Like this is why Christianity is dying, is because of fundies like JRobin, right? This shit can't last, right? Because if the only way this stuff grows on the internet like a fucking cancer, because dipshits like this can get on here and then kind of radicalize each other, right? They can sit around and talk about how they got the high ground and, well, I've read Van Til or I read Bonson or whatever, and he told me that atheists can basically pound sand or whatever. Fucking horseshit, right? They have to actually go out into a real community, an actual Christian community. You can't behave like this. You can't do this in a real with dealing with real people. You can't afford to do this. This is how you get attacked. You can't engage in this kind of interpersonal abuse with people in real life without catching a punch. It's going to happen. And I guarantee you they fucking know it. In real life, this guy is probably just a mincing weenie who never speaks up, never pipes up. This is as good as it gets. Behind an avatar, no one knows his face, no one knows his identity. He can come on here and try to rabble rouse and rhetorically like just chew out anybody that he disagrees with. He's not here to figure things out. He's not here to understand anything. JRobin's got all the answers, and he's going to tell you how it's going to be. This little fucker right here is just a tyrant. He's a wannabe autocrat, and like most of them, he's a fucking idiot. He doesn't know half of the shit that he's actually talking about. He just feels like he needs to put himself in a position where he can tell the world how it needs to shape up according to his superficial expectations. And the worst thing for him are people disagreeing with him, which is why he keeps doing these fucking rooms. And even though, despite the fact that the country is actually slowly being tilted in a direction that should be going in his way, these guys are getting even louder and whinier than they were before. Like we have a Supreme Court right now that's probably is actively kind of catering to the wishes of some of the weirder aspects of like the Christian right, which was weird because up until then most of the right-wing politics stuff was basically kind of on a financial kind of thing. Don't tax me, don't take my freedoms. It was tended to be kind of secular. And now they've kind of engaged in the culture war stuff that should appeal to somebody like JRobin. But to hear JRobin and some of these other people speak, or Tone Deaf, that other idiot that gets on and just does Clubhouse videos for hours about why abortion is murder, even though legally it's not. He wants it to be murder, but it's not yet anyway. That's not enough, right? If you want an example of why this isn't like this is never going to be enough for them. They want to steamroll over any opposition, and the thing is, they don't care if you agree with them. This is extremely important. The most important thing for him, for JRobin, is not whether or not you agree. He doesn't want you to be able to talk. That's why it's don't overtalk me, don't interrupt me, let me explain, let me educate you, let me talk. I get to talk, you get to shut up and listen. You will stay silent, I will dictate the terms. We will do things my way. No, JRobin, you have to earn that, and you can't. He can't earn that. He doesn't know how. He's not an earner in that he doesn't know how to generate respect. He can't even begin to initiate being charitable with people. If you can't do that, you can't even begin to reciprocate with people enough to develop any kind of mutual respect for each other, to start a dialogue, to reach some kind of common accord. And he's given up on that. Most of these guys have. Darth has. Any of these guys that this shit appeals to, what appeals to them is the my way, highway autocratic appeal. These little aluminum foil tin pot dictators running around wanting to lord it over everybody else. And these guys think they can because they think they have a better understanding of an ancient book than anybody else. Their God says they can. Oh, I'm not angry at you. I'm chewing you out on behalf of Jesus. I'm just his proxy here. You know what? Jesus supposedly has set up a heaven and a hell system after I die. The least you could do is shut the fuck up in real life and let me live my life, and I'll deal with the eternal torment and everything else that you're talking about when that's on his terms. That's between me and your God. But we don't answer to JRobin. And JRobin talking to people like this, he needs to be told more often to fuck off. No one owes JRobin an explanation. No one. No Christian should be walking around with this kind of fucking entitled this attitude. No one owes you an explanation for what they believe. Most people can't help what they believe. In fact, the majority of people can't, right? We are convinced by different things. Most of us are convinced by things outside of our control. Doxastic involuntarism, it's real, it's a fact. Look it up, JRobin. You'll see that I'm right and that you are wrong. People are not choosing these beliefs. They're not convinced by yours. You do not have the right to demand that they agree with you, and that's all he's doing here. And he needs to be called out on it more often. Problem is, he only goes into rooms that he controls for the most part, and if he goes into other ones, he tries to shut them down. The other ones that he goes into that will let him speak because it attracts an audience do not tell him often enough to shut the fuck up and to fuck the fuck off. And that's what he needs. That is definitely what these guys need more of. They need to be told to fuck off. This is not Christianity, right? This is radicalized performative fundamentalism designed to abuse and harass people online because their lives in real life are not going well or are not living up to the expectations that they want. This is how they get their frustration out, right here. By rhetorically abusing people and trying to lord this shit over each other. And they don't have it. Christianity's dying and it's fractured. It doesn't have this sort of I mean, all you have to do is take JRobin and stick him in a group full of Catholics and let the Catholics rhetorically beat the shit out of him. He will lose. He will walk out of that group crying. He will do series of Clubhouse rooms bitching and whining about how the Catholics don't know anything, about how they treated him poorly. And then once that wears off and he's gotten his frustration out, he'll turn right back to atheists and skeptics. He's a coward, a cheat, a thief, a liar, and a braggart. And by thief, I don't mean a literal thief. I mean he's a thief of truth. This guy is not honest. He does it to me when I actually get in here. After he kicks James, he calls me out, gets me in here, and I apologize for ranting. This one was going to be ranty because this kid has fucking pissed me off. He's pissed me off for the last time. I can't stand this shit. I am tired of these Christians going at using social media. Clubhouse actually has rules about this kind of behavior. And dickheads like JRobin set up a Clubhouse room to bring in people to turn them into these fucking these death fights or something. That's not what Clubhouse was supposed to be. You look at anything, and it's like, oh, it's where people can connect and meet up and have conversations and exchange ideas. They're advertising it like it's a social media equivalent of a cocktail party. And for this dipshit, it's a combination of Thunderdome and a William Lane Craig versus whoever debate. It's fucked up. Rant over.
That's fine. Well, if you wouldn't stop over talking me, I would have done so already. But you're yelling.
No point is James over talking JRobin. That's just flat out fucking projection. Again, somebody in this room, like Kevin, this is your fault. Nick, this is your fault. Matt Yester County country buttsucker there isn't going to do that because he's just as ethically challenged as JRobin. But if you are a Christian and you see this behavior, it is your responsibility to call this shit out. JRobin's attitude is abhorrent. It is not Christ-like. It does not reflect the fruits of the Holy Spirit. I know. I was a Christian for 30 fucking years. I know how that shit works. JRobin is not a Christian. If you are Christians, you need to call him out. You need to pull his plug. You need to take him aside. You need to tell him to shape the fuck up or get the fuck out. It's as simple as that. If he wants to join Al-Qaeda, that's his business. But that's not what Christianity is supposed to be. He should become an Eastern Orthodox or he should become a Roman Catholic, and he should shut the fuck up and do a lot more reading. He should listen and read, not run his fucking mouth like a fundy wanker that he is. And you Christians talking to him, you have a responsibility in your religion to call him out and to shut him down. You need to straighten him up. That is your responsibility. And don't give me this free speech crap. Free speech doesn't exist in Christianity. And you goddamn well know it doesn't. Because JRobin knows that free speech doesn't exist in Christianity. That's why he's trying to spread that concept to the secularists. We don't have a right to speak because we're not Christians. Well, you know what? Christians don't have a right to speak in certain ways per that religion. And this kind of attitude that JRobin's expressing needs to be shut down by his elders and his betters. And there are elders and there are spiritual betters in Christianity. You guys know how it works. Correct this. Enabling this makes your church more abusive. It makes your religion more abusive, and it makes it less. All this does is just fuck people up. If you want your religion, if you are serious about Christianity and you want it to grow and you want it to thrive and you want it to bring more people in and help people out and sustain itself, you need to correct people like JRobin. If you want to see Christianity die the slow, agonizing, screaming in horror, pain, death that it is currently dying, listen to the shrieks of JRobin. They perfectly represent what's happening with the Christian faith in the United States right now. If you want Christianity to get wiped out one way or the other, it's JRobin and ilk like him that are going to kill it. No one wants this shit. And the people that do want this shit have the exact same goals that JRobin do, and those people will eat each other. It's not sustaining. So you're on record now. I'm calling out every Christian for this. Any Christian in Clubhouse. If you see JRobin acting like this and you do not correct it, if you do not take him aside in a spirit of loving kindness and correct him in the name of Jesus, you are complicit in this behavior, and you are responsible for shaping the church and its ideology and its rhetoric in this direction. You are a Christian fascist, because that's what JRobin is. And if you guys continue down this road, you will get canceled. It's going to happen. It's happening right now. It doesn't matter that the Supreme Court is moving in its ways, that politics is moving in its ways. These are fringe things. They've been cultural war things for a long time. But this attitude is going to chill people. It is going to piss them off. It's going to galvanize them to resist. It is going to end Christianity. If people want this kind of fundamentalism, they can pick this kind of craziness from a lot of other different religions. They don't have to get this abuse from JRobin and other Christians that are willing to go along with this.
and acting out of control like you always do. Okay.
Repeat it.
Okay. So in response to the question, right? God does not exist
Repeat
because you
what
told me I'm speaking. All right. I'm going to give you one more last chance. You told me that God is
A last chance in 5.
supernatural, whatever that means, and that he's not testable / repeatable. Okay.
No, I didn't
Now,
say that.
the implicit,
You didn't
yes, it
repeat
is. The replays are
You're
on.
repeating.
The replays
I
are
know
on.
that. So can you
Okay.
repeat what I said? Can you repeat
Yes,
what
that's
I
what you
said?
said. That's what you said. And then you
No,
went on to say that as soon as God
holy
becomes
shit.
testable and repeatable, then he loses the label of being super. That's exactly what you said.
Yeah, exactly, Brandon. We need more of these types, though. It only helps tank the pew numbers. Yeah, and that's what's happening. And if you want an example of people who are not going to pews, JRobin. Is JRobin regularly attending a church? Is his ass in a pew seat every Sunday? Is he going on Sunday nights? Is he going on Wednesdays? Is he attending Mass anywhere? Like, what's he doing? I know he's not attending Mass. Catholics are practically Satan. So yeah, instead of being there, what are they doing? They're listening to each other rant and rave about politics and society around them, and all I hear from this guy is just an emotion of revenge. He wants revenge on people that are different than him. He wants revenge on people who have slighted him. He wants revenge on a society he doesn't understand and disagrees with, and he's going to get it. Awesome. Cool. Guess where that leads? Guess what that sounds like? It sounds like fucking fascism. And that's what JRobin is. He's a Christian fascist. So is Darth Dawkins. So is Tone Deaf. Can they explain why they are? No. But you can see it in what they want. They don't want to talk to people. They want to shut people down. They want to abuse people. They want to ridicule people. When they get into politics, the conversation gets even worse. These guys are Nazis, right? They're not Nazis in the literal sense, but they might as well be Nazis. They're just Nazis wearing Christian crosses. America's had this problem for a while. We know this. We know Christian nationalism is a problem. JRobin is a perfect example of why its ideology is a real problem, because that ideology, his brain is chock full of that shit. And he has a head full of bad ideas and probably shitty wiring. And he is running all gas, no brakes with it.
Said, well, I don't know what you're talking. Do you
No,
have
it's not
memory loss?
exactly what I said.
Okay, James,
It
we're
is
gonna
not
move
exactly-
on. We're gonna move on. That's exactly what you said. That's exactly what you said. You said that I'm almost quoting you verbatim, so maybe you have short-term memory loss. You said that God is if we're
You don't actually need to say that. See what I mean? He's been called up. He stopped going into certain Christian groups because they would call him out for that shit. They would check him for that attitude. No, Kevin, Nick, Matt, spineless bitches, right? They're not going to do that. They're not going to fucking call him out, right? Because they actually like this. They're probably sitting back with a grin on their face and half a boner, probably in their hand, right? Listening to this shit, right? This is their kink. This is what they do. But when JRobin has been in rooms with people who are a little bit more, even amongst other other Christians, where they're just trying to have an ecumenical conversation, they end up getting into this kind of issue with him. I've watched them chide him before. We've told you, JRobin, about that attitude. We've told you about checking those passive-aggressive comments. We've told you about the sleazy little insults that you slip into your conversations, the gaslighting. I was in a video, I think, well, I was in the audience watching a Clubhouse discussion 3 or 4 months ago, and watched somebody take him by the ear, give it a twist, and be like, no, you're not fucking doing this. Knock it off, grow the fuck up, stop throwing a tantrum on literally everyone that you talk to. And what did he do? He threw a tantrum on that person. And then I think he rage quit. Because he's right, and he won't be corrected. So, JRobin, the solipsist.
defining God as supernatural, whatever that means, that he's not testable or repeatable, okay, and that once he becomes testable or repeatable, okay, then he is no longer supernatural. I don't know if you want me to like memorize word for word everything you said, but that's the essence of what you said, okay? That God is supernatural, not testable and repeatable, and that once he becomes that, he's no longer supernatural. That's what you said. Now own up to it, or don't be on stage if you're gonna have memory issues, right? And I was explaining to you that that's the appeal to ignorance fallacy, because the fact that something, according to you, even if I granted it to you, that God is not testable or repeatable, that doesn't mean he doesn't exist. Unless you're gonna give me an argument that something necessarily needs to be testable and repeatable in order for it to exist, which you haven't done either, right? So on both fronts, it's just been a fail. And it's the same argument you've been trying to peddle to me that I've given rebuttal to time and time again. Right? Now,
there's nothing necessarily wrong with what James' argument was if what he defines as existing needs to be in the category of being empirically verifiable. And that's the problem that JRobin seems to have. He hasn't even actually gotten into dealing with the definition of what he means by existing. Because for some people, especially somebody who's an empiricist, might come along and say, well, my definition of exist is that it must exist within time and space. That's not a category of existence that JRobin would apply to God, or a property he would apply to existence, right? God exists, but he is outside of space and time. Okay, then what does it mean to exist then? I don't think for an empiricist that means much. In fact, I've heard scientists say, like, if you're talking about God in that way, I don't know what you mean. If you're talking about an extant thing, it should exist within time and space. But you're talking about something that transcends time and space, so can't help you. Malformed question. Try again.
I'm going to give you another chance. If you want to act like someone with self-control, then we can have a good conversation. All right? Okay.
That's a false promise. You cannot have a good conversation with JRobin. And I know, I did a series of videos, discussions with Michael, the Canadian atheist, over a couple videos that he did where he had some long conversations with JRobin. Were they good conversations? No. I think Michael did an okay job. But ultimately, when Michael would try to ask JRobin challenging questions, JRobin routinely and reliably would try to shift the conversation back to something that was problematic for Michael rather than deal with the implications of something that was problematic for his stance. Because he will not be challenged. He doesn't have time for that. Even though a lot of the times, ultimately, when he has been asked questions, ultimately, what does it come down to? God revealed it to him. And when asked, how do you know? Okay, you think that it was revealed to you. How do you know that that's God doing the revealing? What does he bring up? Oh, you're going to give me the Descartes demon BS, blah, blah, blah. Hand waves it away, goes right back to dealing with the implications of what? Atheist rationalism, right? That's essentially what these guys are doing. I've come up with a hyper-rationalist explanation for why God must exist, or you can't come up with a rational explanation for why he can't, and therefore he does. That sounds like an argument from ignorance.
Are you claiming to me? Well, let's make sure it's clear. The reason I said you weren't answering the question, James, was because you gave a response to the question, but you said it's not actually an answer to the question, right? When I asked you, is the fact that God is not testable and repeatable, is that determinative of the fact that there is no God? You said no, right? Then you weren't answering the question because the question I asked you was, how is it that there's no God? So if the response to the question of how it is that there is no God does not answer how it is the case that there is no God, then you didn't answer the question, right? So do you have a response that when I ask you, does it answer the question, you'd say yes, James? I invited you back on stage, James, so you can come on. Okay, so maybe that wasn't the answer to the question, right? And that would be good because that was
I mean, a simple answer to this question could be, well, if you're asking what something is, but then you turn around and define it as something outside of space and time, then we're not talking about something that can be. So you're categorically completely off the mark. So saying, why can't a God be, right? Why can't it exist? Didn't you define it as outside space and time? Yeah. There's your answer. Now he has to attempt to explain that away. What he's going to end up doing is holding somebody to account. Like, no, you're going to tell me why you think that empiricism is the end-all, be-all of proving whether something is or isn't. Well, for human beings, it is the end-all, be-all for measuring what is and isn't out there, right? But again, this is one of those things where you end up getting into like what the physical sciences dedicates itself to, and what philosophy, the kind of questions that philosophy is attempting to answer. And people like JRobin thrive on confusing and conflating those worlds and stirring all that stuff up because it sows division and it sows animosity, which is what JRobin thrives on, right? They're like dementors. They show up, they suck all the fun and happiness and life out of the room in the name of Jesus, I guess. Notice that none of this is a ministry, right? None of this is about imparting Have you heard anything about Jesus yet? This is why this is gutter tier apologetics. Have you heard anything about the Christian God? Anything about faith in Jesus? Anything about God's faithfulness? Jesus' faithfulness, his loving kindness and his salvation, his ultimate sacrifice for us? No. What you're getting is a debate bro bitched up philosophy lecture from a kid who doesn't understand the distinction between logical entailments and ontological necessity. I should say he doesn't really understand logical entailments, but logical necessity and ontological necessity, and he conflates the two of them constantly, right? His argument, his question presupposes an attitude that he can go ahead and make an appeal to an argument from ignorance because you can't tell him that a God doesn't actually exist. All you can tell JRobin has figured out that the only thing that you can answer when I ask the question, God does not exist because, you can tell me why you're not convinced there is one. But you can't tell me that there definitely isn't one in actuality. And therefore, it's perfectly okay for JRobin then to go on and say, well, why not this explanation? Well, JRobin, for the same reason I would ask the Muslim, why is it Allah and not Yahweh? Why isn't it the Hindu pantheon? Why isn't it the absence of any gods? Why isn't it something more akin to maybe a kind of pantheism or panentheism? Oh, because it was revealed to us by these scriptures. Other religions have scriptures too. Other religions claim divine revelation or secret knowledge or communing with the divine. So, and those don't exist because?
The appeal to ignorance fallacy. So
that you're engaging in, JRobin. Indirectly, that's what you're appealing to. Thank you very much, Justin, for the super chat. Something very few people comment on is how loud JRobin jacks his mic up so it's easier to talk over people. Yeah, and I think he uses well, I don't know if he's using a dynamic mic or not, but yeah, he's definitely using something that he can pump up the gain. Thank you again for that, Justin.
if you want to come up and answer the question this time, have a calm, cool, and collected conversation.
That conversation was calm and collected. JRobin ratcheted it up. And now he's again implicitly blaming the other person for that going sideways. When JRobin was the one that was doing the screeching and the interrupting and the halting and the bitching and the moaning and the misrepresentation and the projecting, all of that was JRobin. But next time we can have a more adult conversation. I don't understand why we can't have a more adult conversation on here. And he immediately drops to the floor, fills his diaper, and starts shrieking and pounding on the floor uncontrollably. Yeah, I wonder why we can't have an adult conversation. You hysterical nitwit.
I'd be happy to let you up. So you're invited back on stage, James. I sent you the invite.
Here we go. Let's see here. Alpha, thank you for the super chat. It's a slaughter of archangels in JRobin's style of apologetics is food for demons. Keep up the good work. We need to feed the troops. Thank you, Alpha. I am not. I regret to inform you that your super chat will not go towards my caffeine fund because, well, as you can tell by the tone of voice in this particular video, caffeine is probably not indicated for my current condition. Because this guy, John Lee, all of these guys, all of these guys can go. They can fuck right off to their hell, right? I've had a gut full of them. I'm so sick of listening to their bullshit and their attitude, and they're just this Jesus juggling, Bible humping fuckery that they constantly inject into social media every chance they get is obnoxious and disgusting. I wish they would man up, put on the swastika, and step outside into the light so people can identify them for what they really are.
So come back up. So Jefferson, it looks like you're mouthing off in the chat again. So I'm going to give you one chance.
Mouthing off.
This is my policy, okay?
This is his policy now. This is hilarious.
So for now, and while the remainder of my time while I'm using Clubhouse, if somebody's going to mouth off in the chat, okay, that's fine. But then you're going to have, when I invite you on stage, you're going to have to come on stage and put your money where your mouth is. That's my policy. If you don't want to do that, if you want to be a heckler, if you want to be a hidden run, drive-by troller who's just going to mouth off in the text chat, then
I actually would ask this because I thought this was funny because this is after a conversation that he had. What was fast forwarded through here, JRobin had a conversation with a guy that had the unusual script. He had I think the picture that he had was David, right? And I think he's Italian. His name was Ricardo, and then I can't remember where he said that script was from. It's from an East African country. He came out and had a brief exchange with JRobin, and it was kind of interesting. I kind of liked where Ricardo was starting to go with his argument because he got in there and he was saying something about he kind of presented this idea that he's like, well, you believe that I think he got JRobin to agree with this. Like you believe that the Bible serves as a testimony for the existence of God, right? It can be relied on. He's like, but in that case, the Iliad can serve as a written document proof for the existence of Zeus, because it talks about Zeus's actions in that book. So, right? So he starts to bring up this point, and then JRobin just gets obsessed with trying to figure out what category of atheist this guy is or what he claims to be. And I think Ricardo basically says, no, I'm a hard atheist. I don't believe in God. I don't think a God exists, right? And then JRobin spent most of that brief time talking with him, over talking him, interrupting him, repeating questions, rephrasing and repeating questions, and Ricardo never really got a full chance to really express, like in a long explanation, what he was talking about, and I wanted to hear it. So basically what you just, JRobin would take bits and pieces. This guy would start to talk. JRobin would take it, twist it, say why it didn't philosophically apply and why this guy needed to do this rather than that. Same usual shit. And the comment that I think I made was, now we're going to see JRobin cram philosophy into his performative fundamentalism or something like that, right? I think JRobin reads it. That's the context here. So there was that conversation. I was listening to that, making comments here and there while it was going. That particular comment triggered JRobin, and that's why he's now quote unquote calling me out, and that's his new policy. If you're just a member of the audience and so basically, I think for JRobin, if you're going to be critical, if you're going to ask questions or do anything critical, you can't. That's just his stance now. Because if you ask questions or make comments or like I'm sure it's totally fine for JRobin or any one of these ding dongs to go into an atheist room and write snarky bullshit. I know because JRobin's done it in my fucking chats. I know he's fucking done it. He's done it in live chats where people have told him, "Hey, Jefferson's on," and he's talking about what does he do? He comes right over here and he starts running his fucking mouth. What usually, like the one time that I was with Tom Rabbit, he jumps into the room and he starts talking about how we're all obsessed with him or something, like making those kinds of snide, passive aggressive comments. He has no problem with trolling. He just doesn't like it when it's being done to him. Secondly, I wasn't trolling him. My criticism was legit. And now he's like, "Oh no, you're not going to do that without getting called out. You're going to come in here." Oh, okay. So since he did that, and I was up for a break from my stuff, it was time to step away from the computer and the phone. I decided, all right, we'll go in. Let's see what's the worst that can happen.
You're off the stage, and I'm gonna kick you out of the room, so you're not even gonna be able to listen here. So, this is my policy. I'm not worried about you talking garbage or talking crap about me or anyone else on the stage. But the point is that you're gonna come on stage and actually defend your words. Okay. So Jefferson, you're here. Good.
Okay.
So,
I still love it that he's picked up that tick. Okay. That cocky, weird, goofy. Okay. Like now it's gotten to the point where if somebody uses that on me, the first thing I think about doing is like strangling them. It's just like stop signaling the ends of your conversations. That condescending. Okay. You know what you're doing. Knock it off. Try to control yourself.
it says, I'm just looking back on the logs here. It says, now we will see JRobin cram philosophy to fit in his performative fundamentalism. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It means you're a fundamentalist and you treat philosophy like fundamental Christianity. You abuse it.
What does that mean?
You act like if you can prove the validity of or demonstrate the validity of some kind of deductive argument that it must hold actually, like it's some kind of like magic spell god.
If something's necessarily true, then
okay, Carlton, you're really asking for it. This I told you. I thought I apologized in advance for possibly cutting into the end of your video, but don't you K me. And it's, yeah, which one's worse, the MK or the K? Good question. Probably both. Each one is worse than the other somehow. Good to see you, Carlton. Thanks for joining.
then it's necessarily true by definition. I don't know what I'm still lost at where you're getting at here. How am I let's put it this way. What am I cramming philosophy? How am I cramming philosophy into fundamentalism or my performative quote unquote fundamental? What is that even? How am I cramming philosophy?
I like this. I like that I gave a comment. He's really trying hard, I think, because I actually heard it. I heard a rusty wheel kick over in his head, like, oh, you're gonna have to unpack that for me because I know that that's a dig on me. I know that this sounds like something that's critical of me, JRobin, and I can't be criticized because I'm never wrong. So you need to tell me, explain your jab at me. so that I like come at me exactly this way, explain to me everything that you're doing, and now watch me demolish you, bro. Like I shouldn't have even said that. I'm like, if you can't understand my criticism, then you need to reflect more on what you're doing. That probably should have been what I did. And I don't really get into specifics with this one because I didn't need to, right? My problem with these guys, and I tried to lay it out there and he couldn't understand it, is these guys seem to think that if they can present validity, right? I have a valid argument for the existence of God, that that somehow makes it so. Because they can't understand that validity is not the same as truth, right? Valid and sound are different things. Just because you have presented an argument that is that's valid, that means it conforms to an inference rule that is truth preserving, not truth generating. It just means that if there's truth to it and it's in this it's holding to these inference rules, then it will, if it is true, the validity of it will support that. It will preserve the truthfulness of that. But validity doesn't automatically get you to that because you could do all sorts of things, present all sorts of valid arguments that could have entailment. You can present an argument for the non-existence of God that is totally valid. And by that, and people have attempted to do this. They've been doing it with these presuppers for a long time. I can give you a valid argument for why there is no God. Now tell me why that's not sound. And they just blow it off. Well, because it starts with the idea that there is no God, so I just don't accept it. But it's valid. But these guys think, well, if you can't provide me with a valid syllogism for why a God can't be actually the case, then you can't show, since you can't show it deductively, you can't prove it actually. Therefore, it must be like, okay, that might raise the possibility that it could exist, but it doesn't raise the inevitability that it does exist. And that's what JRobin does. That's how he's abusing philosophy. He's cramming it into fundamentalism because he thinks that philosophy, some of these philosophical disciplines, for some strange reason, are either magic spells granted by God, they're the secret programming language of the universe, or they're the only religious things that skeptics and atheists actually hold to. So if I give you something valid, you stupid atheist, then you have to accept that as being biblically true. No, you don't. That's not how it works. And I feel like that JRobin is the worst at this because he tries to channel this shit the most because of his position. He asks the question, God does not exist because I want you to give me an argument for the impossibility of God's actual existence. Go. Okay, I can't. Well, there you go. God could exist, therefore he does exist. There, I fixed your problem for you, JRobin. Me saying it that way, does it make it seem like what your position is incredibly fucking stupid? Like the galactically dim-witted out there can understand that that argument implicitly is bullshit, and you keep trafficking it and acting like you're a fucking professional wrestler, like pounding your chest, demanding people come at you to ask your answer the stupid malformed question, and there's nothing to it. Nothing at all. It is you. All you want is some malformed. You ask the question, no matter what answer you get, it's like, you can't answer my question, therefore that justifies me assuming that that God actually exists. That is an argument from ignorance. You can't show that it doesn't exist, therefore I can go right ahead and say that it does. This is basic fallacious thinking. Basic. And JRobin is committed to it every time he asks that question. Every single time he asks that question, he's committing that fallacy. And he thinks that because somebody can't present him a valid argument, which they could, but he's not asking that. God doesn't exist because. Somebody can present him arguments about why God can't exist because an ultimate can't exist in that way, because God contradicts his own nature, because God is imaginary and he must be contingent upon the minds of people. It doesn't matter how many times people present those ideas to him, he rejects them and says, nope, not good enough. I can go on assuming that God could be real, and therefore I can assume he must be real. Next. Constant fallacies. Constant. And he will be on here for hours doing this basic one-step move. I ask this question. I don't get an answer that I want. There's no way somebody's going to satisfy me with this answer because no one's going to tell JRobin that God can exist because God could exist, and therefore the God that he believes in, the Jesus, the super fundamental Jesus that's a combination of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher blown up to the dialed up to 11 and blown up huge like Mad Max Fury Road. That's his God, super Yahweh, on the Thunderbolt Highway. That's his Jesus. That's his God. No one can tell me wrong. And the reason that I made that conclusion, it was revealed to me, and you can't tell me that it can't be because it could be, therefore it must be. Cool, JRobin. Awesome. A kid could make this argument about Santa Claus, and you would completely wave it away because the kid's clearly lost his mind. JRobin has lost his mind. These are the arguments of insane people. This is not coherent. And I don't know how many times people have to address the question, work it back, recognize what you're doing in this implicit attempt to justify your stance that since God can't be ruled out, I must rule him in, is a basic fallacious stance. You refuse to acknowledge that. You're going to insist that everyone else around you is stupid and wrong.
Into anything.
You're abusing philosophy. You're treating it like it's like
how am I abusing philosophy?
Well, first of all, you're not really getting it correctly, right? Like listen
Okay,
to you
what am I
guys.
getting incorrectly? Look, stop just giving me these generalities. We just had a conversation.
And this is the part that pisses me off too. This fucking punk here is talking to me about this shit like I don't know what Christianity is. That's problem number one. I was a Christian for the first 30 fucking years of my life. I was born in that darkness, raised in it, nursed at its teat, right? I know fucking Protestant Christianity. I lived that shit. I'm pretty sure that JRobin, in an explanation about his life, he did the same thing too. I'm not going to try to pull the age card on him because I'm not Darth Dawkins and I'm not that cringe. At least not yet. But in this rant, this pisses me off. This guy doesn't think I was ever a real Christian because I'm obviously on the wrong track now because I'm an atheist. So I couldn't have ever been saved, right? Or something like that. I don't know where JRobin's mind goes with that kind of theology, but fuck him, right? This fucking little cunt is lecturing to people who grew up in churches, who grew up with this shit. And he fucking knows better. I talked to PhDs in theology. And they couldn't answer these questions and would not talk like this guy. I talked to them when I was a believer, and I talked to them after the fact, when I lost my faith, when I deconstructed or whatever. I have talked to those people, and I have never heard anybody traffic in the kind of disingenuous, dishonest, lying horse shit that this kid gets into on the daily. This shit is pure fucking poison. So I do not like the attitude of like, you're going to come in here, step into my office, I'm going to lecture you, I'm going to chew you out because you don't live up to my standards. Get fucked, JRobin. That is not what Clubhouse rooms are supposed to be for. You're supposed to be inviting a discourse on here. This is not a place where you can fucking call people. It's not fucking Wild West where you call people out into the street at high noon. Get fucked with that bullshit. This guy should get his fucking Clubhouse permissions yanked for this crap. He's supposed to be engaging in conversations, not death races and this fucking gladiator games that he's trying to do so he can get his dick hard. Like, if he wants to do this, he's supposed to do the adult American thing. Go to a bar, get drunk, pick a fight, and then fornicate. Not necessarily in that order either. Dealer's choice.
It seems to be the case that you're directly referencing this conversation that was just had. Why don't you give me a specific instance of what philosophical term or concept I abused or got wrong, just as you just said, that I just used? What was it? What did I get wrong here?
You seem to be incapable of making a distinction between logical necessity and ontological necessity.
Okay. What specifically did I get wrong in this conversation? I was just asking Ricardo, okay, to present his case for how is it the case that there is no God, right? So the conclusion of his argument would be that there is no God. Okay. So what did I get wrong here? I barely made any claims here other than to correct him and to give the rebuttals to what he was saying. Other than that,
no, he didn't. That's not what he was fucking doing with that guy. I was interested in hearing what that guy had to say, and JRobin was running him down and over-talking him and interrupting him and repeating questions and reiterating what he said, because what's more important is that people hear what JRobin has to say on an endless fucking loop. He did not let that guy get his point across. He got to say part of what he wanted, and JRobin fixated on why that could be wrong and then wouldn't let it go and just kept hammering and picking at it because he's a fucking useless piece of shit. If you want to have a conversation, if you really want to understand and, quote, own somebody, right, you want to understand what they're doing and what they're getting wrong, then you might want to actually let them fully explain what it is they're talking about. Not interrupt them 6 seconds into an explanation and then start fucking fixating on why that can't be right from the jump. That's what JRobin did to this Ricardo guy. And this Ricardo guy was on track to do something that maybe it was something we'd heard before, but it seemed slightly different. And I wanted to hear it. And would JRobin give him the opportunity to just give him the space to lay that explanation out? No, he couldn't be bothered because JRobin had to show everybody how hard a Christian he is. It was fucking pathetic. And now he's doing it again where he's got to flex like, you're going to come into my room or I'm going to let you go. Oh, big fucking deal. I can't watch you verbally abuse people on Clubhouse, something you're not supposed to be fucking doing in the first place. Oh. JRobin owes me a massive thank you for showing up on his channel and letting him talk to him like this. I have no responsibility, no obligation to ever talk to this fucking cunt. Ever. And he has no fucking right to talk to anybody with the amount of attitude that he's talking about. The entitlement and that fucking prick is off the fucking chart, and somebody needs to jerk his leash. He is out of his fucking mind. And I apologize if I'm getting worked up. This kid has fucking pissed me off. I hate his fucking guts. I hate everything he stands for. I hate everything he says. He should be fucking canceled yesterday.
That I didn't really make any claims. So what did I get wrong here?
Well, you weren't following what the argument that he was giving. He was saying there was no Zeus based on the fact that the Iliad book.
No. I asked him, how is it the case that there is no God? Okay. So then what you're telling me he wasn't answering my question. Is that what you're telling me? So then what did I get wrong if he didn't answer my question?
Well, you guys.
So you still haven't answered. So what did I get wrong? What did I get wrong? What did I get wrong? You said I was getting something wrong. So what did I get wrong?
I don't think you were paying attention to what he was saying. He wasn't saying God in general. He was saying Zeus specifically.
Okay.
Due to claims made by the Iliad. That's what he laid out for you.
All right. So then he wasn't answering my question, is what you're telling me.
Right.
Because the question I asked was not about Zeus.
I don't know if he was
It was about
answering
how
your
is it the case that
question or
there's no.
not. I'm just saying
Okay.
that was the claim.
Jefferson. If you're gonna make claims, especially if you're gonna make negative claims about people, I would think that if you have any self-respect, if you have any integrity, you'd take the time and have the you'd have
See this built into this? Like, you're not giving me an answer, and now I'm going to use this as an opportunity to explain why your character is bad. Get fucked, you ignorant fuck. The fact that you can't understand my criticism is not on me. It's on you. Get fucked, get wrecked. Read a book. Okay? It's not my responsibility to explain to you why I think you're a fucking idiot, even though I'm actually doing that right now. So if you want to tune into this video and hear how fucking stupid you are from me and what I exactly think about you, you're more than welcome to watch my videos. Watch them until you throw up. I don't give a shit. Or block me like you usually do and just stick your fingers in your ears and kiss your fucking ass goodbye, because the only thing that you're good for is sucking your dick and claiming that's praising Jesus. That's the only thing you've got going for you, you sorry sack of shit. I do not owe you a fucking explanation, and I put that criticism in there for people who are reading those comments and people who are in the audience. I did not do that to fucking twist your nipples or cheese you off. I was not in there to troll you. I do not get off on that shit. I don't give a fuck. You know goddamn well I do not go in there picking fights, even though I'm sure you consider that's what it is. I go in and bring up a point of disagreement with somebody, and these dumb shits are like, oh, here he is trolling again. Fuck you. Get fucked. It cannot be said enough. It cannot be said enough. There's no place for this kind of horse shit in these social media places. These guys have carved out this disgusting, rotten hole in every social media place they go to. It doesn't matter if it's YouTube, Discord, the Clubhouse, any social media they can get onto. They go fucking at it like just like a drunk quarterback on fucking prom night. These guys suck. They turn everything that they touch into bullshit. It's an anti-Midas effect. And I'm fucking sick of it. I'm fucking sick of this attempt at Christianity being the one thing that's on blast all the fucking time. You don't know how many times in the last 2 weeks I've watched this shit and been like, I'm ready to disengage from this entire attempt. Even criticizing this community is fucking noxious and fucking poisonous. And now I no longer give a shit. If the only criticism that I can put out there now at this point is get fucked and I hate your fucking guts and I hope you die in a fire, that's what I'm going to start fucking doing. Because you don't offer people anything. No hope, no peace, no prosperity, no cooperation, no assistance, nothing. All you offer is derision, cynicism, nihilism, and a jaded disrespect for all of humanity. It's just misanthropy through and through. All of it. All of you guys can get fucked. You can take your Bible with you. Get into a pit, fuck yourselves to death. I hope you choke on your cum and blood.
Have the self-respect and the respect of others to actually listen carefully to what both sides are saying, and actually, and that your response, that your negative responses would be an analysis, an accurate analysis of what actually transpired. So is your response, what you wrote down in the text that I just referenced, is that an accurate analysis of anything that just happened in this last conversation? Yes or no?
Of anything specifically? No, it's just,
Yeah.
I think it's
So
just
it's not an accurate analysis. No.
See, because my answer starts going with no of anything specific, then he immediately, so it's not an accurate analysis. Cute, huh? No, it didn't. I don't mean it didn't. You said of anything specific to the conversation you just had with Ricardo. It didn't necessarily have to do with it being specifically about the conversation you were having with Ricardo. I had been listening in since James had been in. So no. You had been engaging in abusive, in this sort of like twisted, attempt at explaining philosophy for a while, even though you can't get out of the basic fallacy that I've just explained in this fucking video. So, yeah, JRobin, no, it didn't necessarily have to be about anything specific. It could just be an observation about your general tendencies. And when I attempt to say that, because it's not about something that you specifically did, and I can't pinpoint the exact moment in time in the video and in the conversation when something happened, the criticism can't be viable. It can't stand. What the fuck? Oh, if you're going to accuse me of murder, you better have me on tape. Oh, okay. No, I wasn't accusing you of anything other than being bad at philosophy and trying to, sports fuck it into your crazy foaming at the mouth theocratic bullshit. That's what I was accusing you of. That's something that you do in general all the fucking time. You were the one that called me out and wanted me to come into the room and quote unquote, you're going to explain yourself, right? Like I owe you an explanation. I don't fucking owe you an explanation. I gave you my criticism. I wrote it in a comment thread. It's not my fault that triggered you. It's not my fault that you got your underwear in a knot and had to go off on anyone and everyone that thinks that you're full of shit. That's not on me. And I really do not appreciate these fucking Christians having to put this shit on literally everyone else they talk to. And it's not just atheists. They're doing this to each other. They do this to their fellow Christians.
No, it's not. Okay, so it's just a
That's
general
not what
heckling. So it's okay. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Okay,
Yes,
Jefferson.
It's an
Okay, good. So it's an accurate analysis. Okay, good. So tell me.
generally.
Specific. So I want to know from this conversation what we did here. What did I do that was incorrect with reference to my use of philosophy?
So you're trying to,
or how did I abuse philosophy?
It seemed like you were trying to get this.
How did that happen?
I'm trying to answer. Are you going to let me answer, or do you just want me to go?
Yeah. What was wrong about what I asked him?
So it seemed to me, and
I like that he doesn't answer. He doesn't give you anything that you want or need. All I need to know is if he wants me to answer. So he has to repeat the question. He's not going to concede, oh, yeah, no, go ahead. He can't even do that. He's that big a fucking prick. Do you want me to answer? That's a yes or no question. I do not need another explanation. I don't need paraphrasing. I don't need another summary. I don't need your CV, your resume, whatever the fuck else you want to present to me. Stop flexing. Answer my goddamn question. What do you want? Do you want a question answered, or do you want me to leave? Because if all you're going to do is run your fucking mouth, he can do this on his own. That's what YouTube channels are for. That's what I'm fucking doing now. This kid is fucking unbelievable. But if he's not doing it with an audience, like this is his kink, right? Like if he's not doing it with a group, it's not going to get him hard.
You will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will. But based on the conversation you just had with Ricardo, you were trying to shift things over to a conversation about a necessary God as you define it, and not deal with Ricardo's claim about the Iliad being proof for the existence of Zeus. That's what I know.
No, that's not what I got wrong. It has nothing to do with what you were saying. You said I was abusing philosophy. Okay, what about philosophy did I abuse? Yeah, that's not abusing philosophy.
Because you
what's philosophical
because you
concept
wanted to get back,
was I incorrect
about?
Back
into arguing about your idiosyncratic definition of God.
Okay, I just established that has nothing to do with what you claimed here about myself. What philosophical concept? What did I abuse in the philosophical world? In this conversation, what did I do that was philosophically
Was that Matt? Yeah, I think that was Yester piping up. Yester, also, with all due sincerity, eat my shit.
What did I do?
Again, I think you continuously abuse. You demonstrate an inability to recognize the distinction.
Okay, so you can't answer the question.
Wow. And ontological necessity.
I don't even know what you're talking about. We're not talking about. All I did. You don't understand the difference between no. What I'm telling you is that has no relevance to what we're talking about here. Okay, I'm asking you. All I asked him was to demonstrate, because The only reason he was speaking about the Iliad and Zeus and so on and so forth was because I asked him if he was an atheist. Okay, so atheism, as we're both aware, in both the philosophical and even the historical classical layman's text, is the denial of God. I was at
Atheism is a polysemous term. It can also mean the beliefs, the psychological stance of not being convinced that any gods exist. That's also in the literature. That is also established. For the purposes of philosophical jerk-off sessions like these, no, that's not really going to work much. But the vast majority of lay people, one way or the other, that's probably the definition that they're talking about. Why they're not convinced that a God is real. That's it. That's it, right? It's not about presenting a definitive, deductive argument for the non-existence of an actual God. That's not something that people do when you ask them what their belief stance is. This idea that no, if you're going to be an atheist, this is what you're in and this is what you're committed to. No, you're not. You are not fucking committed to that. You're committed to that if you're going to engage in a philosophical discussion about it one way or the other. But you're not committed to that if you're being asked what your belief stance is. And all you're talking about there is what you're psychologically convinced of, what your stance is, right? And that's not largely outside of your control. That's based on arguments you've heard, things you've read, life experience. All those things factor into how you form that. I don't understand. I do understand how these guys don't understand this. They do understand that. They don't want to live in that realm. I don't give a shit about what your psychological stance is. Here's what it is, and we're going to lay it out in a syllogism, and you're going to get it. This is what you're going to agree to. Like, no, I'm not going to let you. I'm not this, and this is something that more of us need to do. I am not going to listen to some entitled fuckwit like JRobin, or Darth Dawkins, or any of these other cocksuckers. Apologies for that, because I know that term comes out of my mouth too often. Any of these fucking bastards talk about this shit as if they're owed an explanation. I'm a Christian and you owe me an explanation for why you think my God's not real. No, I do not fucking owe you that. You owe me an explanation for why you think it's actually real. I don't give a shit that you think it's real. I do not care that you believe that. If you believe that, if that's what you're convinced of, just like me, you can't help that. You've read the Bible, you've read the stories, that's where your psychological stance is. But I'll be goddamned if I'm going to let you stand there and tell me that I have to step outside my belief stance to prove to you that your God is either absolutely real or absolutely false. That is not my fucking responsibility, nor is it my burden. If you want to dictate to me that I need to do things your way, and because your God objectively, ontologically exists in actuality, then you need to fucking demonstrate it. You need to put up and shut up. Because the fact that you're convinced that it's real, it does not follow that it actually is real. And until you can prove that, until you can bridge that gap and prove to me that you're right, that your specific God, burped in the middle of a rage rant, your specific God is the one that we're supposed to believe in, then I'll follow you. Until you can do that, you need to fuck the fuck off. If you want to engage in that because it's your belief system and it's part of your faith tradition, God bless, happy trails, slap you on the ass, I hope you do well. Pray as much as you want, sing all your songs, get as goofy as you can. But if you're going to sit there and tell me, no, we're going to do things our way because you can't tell me my God's not actually real, and I'm convinced, my belief is that it is. You can't bridge that gap, and I can't do it either. And that's the one thing that we have in common. And the one thing that you're demanding that I do is to breach that gap and prove to you beyond the scope of my epistemology something about a God you think is real. That is not up to me. That burden, I'm sorry, Christians and Muslims and Jews and Hindus, that burden is on you. Always has been, always will be. If I'm in a philosophical discussion and I make the claim or the case, God doesn't exist and here's the argument for it, then that burden is on me. But I'm not in a psychological stance. My stance, I don't think it's real, and I'm not convinced that it is. I haven't seen arguments to show it. I just think it's made up. And until I see something different or circumstances change, my psychological position probably isn't going to change. But it might. But because that's my psychological stance, that does not commit me to taking that philosophical stance. I do not have that responsibility. I am not at that point yet. Now, in my case, in my particular case, when I'm on here giving arguments for it, yeah, I might get myself into positions where I'm going to argue about the non-existence of a God. But I delve into those arguments and I can present ones from other philosophers, valid or otherwise. But I don't think that just because they're valid, they're sound. I don't think that that makes them true. And I see too many of these Christians doing the exact opposite of what I'm doing. I found a valid argument for God, therefore it's sound. It's true. End of story. You need to come to me. You will kneel to my God, and by proxy, you will kneel to me as the Christian, as your better, as your superior. And to that I say, get fucked. Get fucked. You can take that and you can go fuck yourself right in the neck with that. That is some entitled, autocratic, horseshit, cocksucking bullshit. You do not get the right to tell me that. Not here, not now, not ever. And JRobin believes he can. He's doing it right now. He does it in all of his channels. Darth Dawkins does it. He operates in the same way. I'm the cop. I pulled you over. Explain yourself. I'm the boss. You work here. You will explain yourself to me. No. You're not entitled to my explanation. You're not entitled to my defense. You asked my opinion. I gave it. That's it. That's as much as you're fucking getting from me. And JRobin, if you would like to have a discussion about this, you're not going to get one. This is the best that you'll get. You can tune into this and listen to me run you down for, what are we up to? Almost 90 minutes. Good time. This is the best that you're going to get. I will never fucking talk to you again. I don't give a fuck if you think it's cowardly. You mute people and ban people and kick people all the time. I don't give a shit. You are the coward. You asked me to come on this fucking show. I did. For the rest of this time, anytime somebody runs by one of these arguments again, I am going to dedicate my channel and my stuff, well, not all of the channel, but a significant portion of it, to taking an opportunity every chance I get when I find you slipping up and stepping out and being a dickhead like you were here and calling you out on it and generating video content that shows people exactly what kind of a fucking piece of shit that you are. Because that's necessary. Maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but as far as social media goes, it is absolutely necessary for people to tell everyone that they can about what a fucking piece of shit, dishonest prick you are until you are run out of these channels, until you have no place left to go. If you want to have a discussion, welcome aboard. If you want to rant and rave and railroad people, if you want to rant and rave, go right ahead. Get yourself a YouTube channel, start screaming into a microphone. Hosting these channels for the purposes of rhetorically railroading people and bulldozing them, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. That shit needs to stop. And any of these Christians with you need to be instrumental in helping stop that crap. If you want to engage in any kind of crosstalk, any kind of ecumenical discussion, that needs to be addressed. But until then, this guy, JRobin, is a parasite. And any Christian listening, that man is a giant liability for your faith. I'm putting a target on his back and I'm calling you out. You need to address that. You need to address Darth Dawkins. You need to address Tone Deaf. You need to address all these fucking guys. These guys that take the Bible and use it as permission to be entitled so that they can walk out into the world like they're managers on the shop floor, and anybody that's not shaping up, they're there to like whip them into shape as God's proxies, to discipline them in the here and now before their God gets an opportunity to kick their asses into a place of eternal conscious torment. Tell these guys, in all sincerity, with the love of Jesus Christ, to get fucked.
Asking him if he was an atheist. That's why he responded. He said, yes, I'm a strong atheist. He said something to the effect, I'm a very strong atheist, very strong. He made that emphatically clear. And then he went on to talk about the Iliad. So I'm tracking the conversation better than you are. And you said this was an accurate representation of the conversation that
I didn't say it was an accurate when did I say that? And he's doing a better job of tracking his own conversation. He was fucking in it. I should hope so. That's a weird fucking flex.
Inspired. Okay. Now I seem to be doing a better job of recalling the conversation than you are, and I've had plenty of conversations this morning. So why am I doing a better job of memorizing things than you are? Okay. He said that yes, I'm a very strong atheist. Okay, and that the Iliad and so faith-based versus evidence-based, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then continuing on to the notion of him being an atheist, I asked him, okay, fine, there is no God because. Then he went on to answer a question that wasn't asked of him. Or if he was trying to answer the question, he gave a fallacious answer to the question. All right. So we're on this train of the conversation again for the 5th, 6th, or 7th time. I'm asking you now, what did I get philosophically wrong, or what philosophically did I abuse, as I'm saying that I'm kind of cramming to fundamentalist Christianity? What did I abuse here?
Based on what you just laid out there, you abused the principle of charity, because I didn't hear him actually lay out anything after that. You kept over talking him and rhetorically trying to browbeat what you thought was his point. You kept jumping to
No, that's not true. That's not true. I asked him so I'm going to.
If anyone gets an opportunity to get a recording, you'd probably have to contact Clubhouse on this. If you can get the snippet of the conversation between him and Ricardo, it was funny because while he was doing this, while he was giving that, I went back into the comments and asked, because Ricardo was still in there. He was still in the audience anyway. And I asked Ricardo, I was like, Ricardo, am I in any way misrepresenting at least the portion of the position that you started to lay out. And he said, not at all. And yet JRobin is here telling me, nope, no. So now at this point, I'm going to start insisting that he tell me, like, I'd just be like, look, if you're going to keep recapping your conversation I'd kind of like to hear it from the other side. I'd like to hear what Ricardo thinks happened. Because I'm pretty sure his summary of events is going to be very different than JRobin's.
I'm going to go over the conversation again because you weren't listening, and you make ignorant statements, based off of your ignorance.
I'm on
It's an
break
ignorant
right
statement.
now.
Well, then you shouldn't. Well, then you shouldn't be mouthing off in the chat, heckling if you can't take the time to actually.
That wasn't fucking heckling. I meant what I said. Heckling is different, and JRobin should know better. If I'm going to heckle, I'm going to go in there and talk about his mama or something. Actually, I wouldn't do that. I don't like that kind of stuff. I mean, if JRobin's mama is still above ground, I feel sorry for that woman.
Actually understand the conversation, because then what it sounds like is you're just ignorantly pontificating about your preconceived ill feelings towards me because you can't defend your own atheism, right? So then because you're bitter because of that, right? And then you just want to take every opportunity to make it sound as though I'm abusing philosophy, when it's not the case. And it's obvious to everyone in the room who has half a brain cell and is actually paying attention, right? So the point is, I'm going to go over the conversation again. I'm going to give you one more chance to explain and to defend your.
I just want to pause that for a second. Echo Tango. I spent 20 years of my life active duty Army, 4 tours to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan, 1 to Bosnia-Herzegovina. I've seen his God's handiwork for myself. This young man makes me wonder what it was for. Damn. I wonder if JRobin would just chalk Echo Tango up to trolling. That's just you. I'm sure that's just you. Doesn't matter your service, man. Doesn't matter the shit you've seen. That JRobin would just chalk you up. No, you're just popping off in the chat. You're looking for laughs and heckling. Yeah. An informed perspective about the horrors that the world can actually provide. What's JRobin's big gripe about the world? Women have legal access to abortion, I think, maybe? Is that one of his number one ones? Did he serve? Has he seen some shit? I mean, maybe he did. I don't know. But, no, thank you for that, Echo Tango. But, yeah, I'd like to illustrate to people, if Echo had put that comment in JRobin's chat, despite this guy's service, it's not a substantive criticism of JRobin. JRobin would just reduce it to trolling. That's the level of regard and respect that JRobin has for his fellow man and fellow Americans. So
your critique, and if you can't, then you're going to be exposed as another example of someone who's heckling from the chat, and I'll put you back down to your shame, or you can continue to do so. Okay, but only to a certain extent, because at a certain extent I'll just kick you out of the room because you're obviously not someone who's worth the time of day to even address. Okay, so I'm gonna do this one more time.
What are we going to do now?
He was brought on stage. I'm going to recap the conversation. I'm going to recap the conversation. Okay. I'm going to recap the conversation.
Why don't you let Ricardo?
Then I'm going to recap the conversation. Because Ricardo doesn't have self-control. I'm going to recap the conversation. I'm going to recap the conversation. I'm going to say this.
Victor, yeah, you're right. JRobin, well, I don't know if it's not one of his pro-choice is up there for JRobin. I know because I was in a room with him and 2 cubes, tone deaf, and he was just as pissed off. And in fact, JRobin, I think, was the first one to take it away from, like, oh, you can't, well, and tone deaf does this too. Like, he'll be like, oh, well, it's, you don't have grounds to stand on for that. Like he immediately makes it about, like, well, you don't have a metaphysical foundation for your beliefs, so you can't tell me that abortion's right or wrong. I'm like, okay. Neat, bro. Since you have a metaphysical foundation for your worldview, can you explain to me why abortion's wrong? Yeah, because it's murder. No, it's not. Well, because it's killing. Why is killing wrong? Killing other people is murder. No, it's not. What about manslaughter? What about self-defense? Whoa. Weasel words and bullshit. So, yeah, you might be right. It probably isn't, but it's one of them, right? And I just mean in comparison to, I don't know if JRobin served. If he did, congrats. My guess is he didn't, but mostly because actual soldiers who have seen some shit, if they flex, don't flex like this. Like, you can tell the difference. JRobin seems like he's probably spent a life living in comfortable anonymity, yet quiet desperation and impotent rage. So. And thank you, Brian Douglas, for the super chat. Officially my first donation, worth every penny. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and apologies and condolences to anyone listening to this because I've got wrathy on this one. This one's been bugging me since it's happened. I was basically going to like, you know what? I'm going to go into Memorial Day and I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to shut this stuff down. I'm like, no, you know what? No, fuck that. I'm going to do what I can do, which is do a video detailing this. Thanks to Clubhouse Debates for snipping this thing so I could do this, highlight this, and then just tear his ass apart as best I can rhetorically because I hate his shit. So thank you for the donation. And I apologize to other people that are used to seeing me kind of come in here and be a little bit more jokey or a little bit more flippant, a little bit more glib. But this kid, no, I'm done. Bandwidth exceeded, 404 error, just flat up. No, I'm not having it anymore. Like, I'm not talking to him about God. We're talking about JRobin. Anytime, if he wants to have a conversation with me, it's going to be about him. It's going to be about his behavior. I don't give a shit about Jesus. I don't give a shit about God. I don't give a shit about what he thinks about Jesus or his God, because he doesn't either. He just wants to use a crap-ass philosophy and some horseshit theology to try to browbeat people. So I want to talk about JRobin. What's wrong with JRobin? Why is he such a dick? Why is he a fucking prick? Why is he abusive to people rhetorically? Why is he dismissive? Why is he an argumentative asshole? Why doesn't he let people finish their ideas? Why doesn't he exchange ideas? Why doesn't he seek to understand people's points? Why does he lie to people? Why does he misrepresent people maliciously, repeatedly, intentionally, exhaustively? Everything that I talk about from here on out about JRobin is not going to be about his ideas. I no longer care about his ideas. My purpose now, if I talk about JRobin, is to excoriate, humiliate, and tear down who he is. Because he demonstrates who he is every time he's on here. If he's a Christian, and these are the fruits of the Holy Spirit, he is a walking representation for everything that atheists stand for. Every reason atheists have to be skeptical of the God of the Bible is embodied in JRobin's behavior. Every day he's on some kind of outlet for social media. And so anytime I talk about him, I don't give a shit about his arguments. I don't care about his philosophy. I care about what a fucking asshole he is. I'm absolutely making it ad hominem. It's just about him. Because he can't control himself, and I can, to the extent that I am going to focus all of my criticism and rage on how he behaves. His argument is stupid. I've already laid that out. Other people have addressed it. He doesn't care. Everybody else shuts it down. I'm not engaging in any more of that. I don't get on Clubhouse that often, and when I do, it's going to be to go on there, and I will heckle him. I will call him out for being abusive, and for being a dick, and for being a jerk. And he will mute me, and he will kick me, and he will ban me, and I will rejoice, because that will mean that I win, and he will lose. And he's losing every day that he acts like this. Look at one of the people that's the most consistently following him these days in his room. That chihuahua with the goggles on, that's Matt Yester, who is also a just weird troll-like individual with also a head full of shitty ideas about politics and about religion. Another wannabe Christian fascist nationalist asshole. That's all these guys fucking are. Now, his behavior isn't quite as egregious as JRobin's. At least I don't have examples of that quite yet. But he's a fucking obnoxious piece of shit too. He doesn't let people talk, and he doesn't really deal with anybody else's ideas. So I'm tired of meeting these guys 3/4 of the way, because they're not willing to meet me even 25% of the way. We're not meeting in the middle. They don't want it, right? It's 100% their way or no way. So I'm going to meet them in kind. It's 100% my way, and they can get fucked. Simple.
This one more time, all right? Or I'm going to move you to the audience where you can't. I'm going to give you a chance to speak after I'm done. Okay.
I sincerely
if you don't want that chance.
Oh, Doubting Thomas, definitely.
Then you can keep talking over me, and I'll move you to the audience, and I'll have the last word. Okay. All right. What happened during the conversation? I brought him up. I told him he has to have an intelligible name. Then he told me his name was Ricardo. Then I said, okay, Ricardo. Then I asked him, are you an atheist? He said, yes, I'm a very strong atheist. And I asked, then he went on to say, the Iliad, faith-based versus reason and evidence-based beliefs. Then he talked about the Iliad and Zeus and the Bible, and that we can't use the Iliad to prove that Zeus is real, just like we can't use the Bible to prove that God is real, and that aside from the Bible, we have nothing to show that God exists. This, that, and the other. Then I asked him, okay, fine. I knew that was the appeal. I knew that if he was using that as the answer to why there is no God, then that would be a fallacy. So I asked him just point blank, okay, fine. I know that's your position. I want to know, in response to this question, what is your response? So I asked him, there is no God because. They gave me the same response, which is then when I went into, okay, you're doing the same fallacy as before. Everyone who needs to make a claim has to support the claim, has a burden of proof, this, that, and the other. That's exactly how the conversation went down. Now, somewhere along that conversation, it seems, you believed that I was abusing philosophy, that I was cramming philosophy into my quote unquote performative fundamentalism. So I'm asking you now for the 8th time, where did that occur? And can you please be specific? Because obviously,
I was as specific as I could. I already told you
all
it
right.
was a
So
general observation, and clearly it triggered you. You are clearly super fucking upset about it.
Jefferson.
No, I'm just exposing you for the
I love that Yester is going to call me out for what I just said there. Like this is how far gone these guys are, right? I'm the one in this room that is in need of being called out, not JRobin. Not JRobin, who is not supposed to be using Clubhouse rooms this way. Not JRobin for trying to high noon people in the chat section, a section that he can turn off. So if he has it on for his room, he's hoping that people come in to heckle him so that he can do this weird flex where he then calls them out. What the fuck is this? Yester has nothing but criticisms for what I say, what I think, ideas that I present, even ideas that aren't my own. They must automatically be wrong, and I'm sure as far as Yester's concerned, if I'm presenting them, they're probably terrible ideas because of who I am, right? Well, turns out you guys have convinced me. Your tactic works. I'm convinced. Anything that Matt Yester says is wrong because it comes from Matt Yester. He has no right to criticize anyone. Every time he says no, it means yes, and every time he says it's bad, it means good. Even if he says murder's bad. I don't... Sorry, but don't get that fundamentalist with it. But yeah, this is the best that these guys can do. The atheist needs to be excoriated because clearly my behavior in this conversation is just... I'm clearly off the chain here, right? I mean... Here I am, yeah, obviously. But I mean, in the conversation that with this particular group, who's done the bulk of the talking? JRobin. And he should. It's his room. I don't have a problem with that. But he wants answers to questions, and when I start to answer them, he overtalks me. And yet, yes, when's Matt going to pipe up? I think the reason that Matt was piping up there was because I dropped an F-bomb. It doesn't matter that his butt buddy there, JRobin, is a fucking abusive piece of shit. No F words, please. This is the level of superficiality that I hear from some of these Christians that drives me fucking nuts. Oh, that's a naughty word. Don't do that. All these guys are is they're concerned with the appearances of stuff. Well, if the appearances of stuff is bad, then you need to fucking check your behavior, JRobin. This looks and sounds awful. But he's going to be, no, I'm a warrior for God. I'm out there defending Jesus. No, you're not. He's not defending God. God needs no defense. God doesn't need defense. Your faith might. But if God's real, he doesn't need your defense. That's not what this is about. This is about JRobin flexing. That's what this is for Matt Yester, too. I know that for a fact. That's what motivates them. Kevin, Hunter, Nick, who knows? My guess is if they're in this group and they're listening in, yeah, probably.
Ignorant clown.
Generally, if they're young guys who are still in Christianity, if these guys are between the ages of 20 and 40 and are still holding to this stuff this way, with this kind of vice grip, they're probably fucking awful, right? They're just awful human beings. The majority of these guys, when I hear them talk about anything, whether it's pop culture, food, fucking food even, like it's a fucking nightmare. It's just a head full of shit ideas. But worse yet is politics, especially the cultural stuff. Have this panel eject Jefferson in this particular panel and have them talk about women's rights. How fucking ugly do you think a conversation about women's rights would be with those 5 guys? It'd be a fucking nightmare. I think every one of us can safely assume that. Because of experience, we can assume. We know where these guys are on most of these issues. It would be disgusting. But Jefferson said the F word.
That you are, and I'm making an example
I'm
of you.
ignorant.
Look, it's obvious. Listen. I'm not actually angry, right? Because I know that I'm in the right here. And I know that you've been exposed as a complete and utter tool and a clown, right? So why would I be angry, right? I mean, because obviously you don't have an answer to the question. What you told me was that I was shifting things around, which is not true. What did I shift around?
And in this particular conversation with him, did I call him an ass or a clown or anything like that? Or a dipshit? Like I will do that with tone deaf because tone deaf triggers me faster than JRobin does. And yeah, I'm admitting they do trigger me because they do. Their behavior sucks. I don't like their tone of voice, and I hate their jerk face and their jerk names and their jerk attitudes, and I just hate them. So yeah, but in the context of this conversation, and JRobin's always keen on that, when in this conversation did I resort to personal attacks? I said this is what he does. He cramps philosophy into performative fundamentalism. I guess you could kind of take that a little bit personally. He clearly did. But now he's saying that this is indicative of me being dishonest or me not paying attention. I'm not tracking the conversation or the past conversations, and I'm a clown. I'm a troll. Okay. So if we're going to engage in this, if we're going to score an exchange between two people based on who made it more personal, faster, and the most, JRobin's losing or winning, depending on how you think these are supposed to go.
I was the one that came to him first. I asked him the question first, so I was the one that was actually leading the conversation, to put it in those terms. So I was the one that was actually initiating, meaning that it was on my train of thought. It was on my train of justification and reasoning and conversation.
So far, I've only
because I started the conversation by asking him
Did you start
if he
the
was an atheist.
conversation?
Yes, I did. I told him he had to have an intelligible name, first of all. He told me his name is Ricardo. Then I asked him if he was an atheist. And then on that same train of thought, I asked him, okay, fine. What is your justification? How is it the case that there is no God? That's what I asked him. So I didn't shift anything around. I didn't shift anything around at all. I started the conversation. I asked him, what is he an atheist? Then I asked him, how is it the case that atheism is true? There's no shifting. Where was the shifting here?
Oh, did you?
Where was the shifting?
Did you want me to talk now?
Yes, I want an answer. Yeah, where is the shifting? Where did I shift the conversation?
When did
Because everything seems relevant to me.
When did I say you shifted the?
All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. You just told me.
When Matt Yester starts talking, it's just like it's like an old, like a weird old lawnmower motor, engine kicking over. He's not going to talk to you. I don't know, what is he, like 20 going on 94? Like, is Matt Yester missing teeth? Because he's got this weird, like, it's like he's mouth out a frog when he talks. Just
said I was shifting topics around and trying to cram things. Now you're gonna play dumb. You see?
Did I say he was shifting? No, I said didn't I say that he couldn't make the distinction between logical necessity and ontological necessity? And then I tried to say that what he'll try to do is try to claim that validity. He'll act like validity is like a 10 commandment or something like that, which I actually think was something that I wrote in his comments. And he says I'm switching the conversation around. Well, and he did do that with Ricardo. But you'd have to go back and watch it because remember, he wants a timestamp, right? You better tell me specifically where I got this wrong. Like, I can't keep track of where it's like here. Okay, so for JRobin, if you want to know specifically what second, what time you got something wrong, all of them, every second of every minute of every hour that you speak words out loud others can hear, you are doing something wrong. Okay, we're going to start there as the baseline, and then what we can do is, because it'll be easier to identify the few moments in time where you get it right. And what I want you to do is when someone can identify when JRobin got something right, I want an exact indicator for when that occurred. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume, I think correctly, accurately, inductively, that anytime JRobin speaks, he's wrong. All the time. So there's your specific moment in time when you got something wrong. Always, JRobin. Always.
Look, this is why you can't talk to certain atheists, because they're fundamentally dishonest.
Fundamentally dishonest. I think the reason that you were triggered was because I was being the opposite of that. I was being honest in my opinion and told you were sports fucking philosophy up into your theocratic horse shit. I didn't use those words. I didn't type those out into your comment. But that's what I should have put in there. If I was being really honest, what I said was you were cramming philosophy into performative fundamentalism, which is what you're fucking doing. You've been doing this with Darth. Greg Bonson did it. Fucking Cornelius Van Til did the same thing too. Oh, I've got this little thing about idealism. I can twist this around and turn it into something where I can basically use it as a magic spell or a super commandment to tell people, not only should you believe in God, you have to. Or, in Van Til's case, you already do. Bonson's case, it was, you fucking better. Because Van Til stuff could go into a hippie kind of thing. No, it's not just that we all believe in that I believe in God and you don't. We actually all believe in God. You're just not totally awake to it yet. Oh, neat. Bonson's like, no, you're lying to me, you fucking asshole. Of course there's a God. And you fucking know he is, and you better admit it. And if you don't, I'll beat it out of you. And if I can't, God will at the end of time. That's what Jesus is coming back for with an iron rod. He's going to kick your ass, and then you'll know he's real. And more importantly than knowing that there's a God, what's more important to these Christians than atheists realizing their God is real? Realizing that those Christians were right because it's about them and it's about their vanity and their superficial need to be hard and to be badasses. In a weird beta way, right? I was servile to the Christian God first, therefore I get the prize, and you're a beta and a cuck and can fuck off? It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
Fundamentally, they can't help themselves.
Jefferson, name.
Oh boy, Yester's going to talk. Thank you, Death Hand. Thank you for the super chat. Have a great Memorial weekend. Yes, thank you, and you too. I hope you have a good one. This will probably be my last stream for the weekend. After this, I will probably tune out. I have the day after Memorial Day off as well. I'm going to probably shut this stuff down and relax and think about JRobin attempting to, I'm going to think about JRobin trying to balance a checkbook and crying and pounding the table with frustration. And that's going to make me smile every day. Because what do we say here? JRobin is wrong all the time. Always.
Name what the error is in like 10 seconds, dude. But
Right.
and
You couldn't.
Name what the error is. Whoever did your dentures, seek professional orthodontic help. I don't know what's going on with your face. Like, spit out the toad that you're sucking on or whatever country bumpkin bullshit that you're doing and try to enunciate clearly. I literally can only understand 40% of what Matt Yester says. And I'm sorry if that sounds ableist. Maybe he definitely has some kind of weird problem, but I cannot understand that mush-mouth psycho.
So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to boot him from the room.
overarchingly,
And this
I
will
hate
teach him. This will
guts,
teach him a lesson.
Robin. I was gonna
This will
troll
teach
you,
me a lesson.
pick a shot, and then whine and complain like a little bitch. So that's all he's gonna do.
I was whining and complaining like a little bitch. I wasn't the one out of narcissistic need that needed to pull somebody out of the comments into the main chat and talk to them about what I was writing in the comment section. How fucking superficial and vain is that, Matt Yester? I'm the one that needs to be taught a lesson? The only lesson that's being taught there is that JRobin will leave the chat open so that he can go fishing through that, and when he finds somebody writing things up, he can flex. That's the lesson that I learned, and I think that's the lesson we all learned. So, cool story, Matt. You keep telling yourself that you guys are rocking it. You guys are keeping it real. Repeat that
They
again.
can't help themselves.
Jefferson, name what the error is
Gerber,
in
gerber,
like
gerber,
10
gerber.
seconds, dude. But
Right.
Gerber, gerber,
and
gerber.
He couldn't. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to boot him from the room.
overarchingly,
And this
I
will
hate
teach him. This will
guts,
teach him a lesson.
Robin. I was gonna troll you, pick a shot, and then whine and complain like a little bitch. So.
Whine and complain like a little bitch. This entire opportunity that JRobin took with me was to whine and complain like the fucking bitch that he is. Not a little bitch either. JRobin is not a little bitch. He's not even a bitch. He's the bitch. He is the queen of bitches. He is the absolute pinnacle of them, ontologically and logically and any other thing that you want to put on there, any other category. That's what JRobin is. He is that superficial, that narcissistic, and that fucking needy that he needed to put me on blast in this room to whine and complain like the bitch he is. Not a bitch, not a little bitch, the bitch, Matt Yester. And you need to get that shit straight. The guy whose dick you're actively trying to get at is a bitch. Right? And he will treat you just as shitty as he treats anybody else. The only reason that you guys are chummy is because you guys agree with each other. You watch these guys get into a theological conversation where they don't agree on some point of doctrine. It's like watching starving dogs going after the last sausage on the floor.
That's all he's gonna do. Yeah. He's not gonna name where you went wrong in that discussion with a guy.
That's where you went wrong in a discussion with a guy. Oh, Jesus Christ, Yester. Jesus Christ. Fuck. Jody Wheeler, thank you for that super chat. For your post-stream Get a Hug from a Puppy Fund. Yeah, actually, I will be going to see family, and there is a puppy that's there, and he genuinely enjoys my company, unlike Christians. I mean, Christians do not generally enjoy my company, but thank you for that, Jody. All right, back to the rage.
He couldn't because he couldn't. He could not.
No.
He was incapable.
Zip, 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 zip. Okay.
I know Dominic was talking a lot.
And I think I'm going to end it here because my rant has peaked. I think I got it out of my system. I'm feeling pretty good. It's cathartic. So the rest of this goes into, he brings in a guy named Dominic, and then the rest of this gets into, I do encourage you, if you are interested, I know it can, I do understand why it's hard to listen to JRobin because listening to him now, the first thing that happens is my blood pressure goes up, and the second thing that happens is I just want to punch his voice. Because I want that sleazy. Oh, well, this is what we're going to talk about. This is how we're going to get it done, And you know what? I'm not saying that your mother is a whore, but when you present yourself that way, it just the only conclusion I can make is that your mother is a whore. People that talk like that need to fuck themselves in the face. Like, just fucking stop doing that. Like, try to be genuine for at least a minute. And I know that this is a little bit performative because, like I said with James, he starts off like Prozac, and then James comes in like, "Hey, bro, let's have a chat," and all of a sudden it goes from Prozac to what's stronger than Prozac? Zoloft, Wellbutrin, like, or maybe a muscle relaxant. He's like trying to sound like I'm just as cool and as implacable as ever. Nothing ever phases me. Nothing phases you. I wrote a comment that you disliked and you had to call me out like you were a gunslinger. Like, what the fuck happened, man? Like, nothing, like the way you present yourself and the way you actually behave and the way you hold people accountable, what you think is being holding people accountable is completely incongruous with what you're actually, with what you, the persona that you're trying to put out there. We know this from Skeptic Generation. You go on there and be like, oh, yeah, because he'd actually let them talk. He has to. He has no choice. He's calling into their show. But then what would he do? Run right back to one of these channels and then fucking bitch about Vi and Eric nonstop. I think the reason he complains about Eric is because maybe he's stealing Eric's thing because Eric kind of talks like that. But when Eric talks like that, it doesn't bother me. Like, there's some people that say that like that general kind of tone of voice, it bothers them a little bit, right? But it does, like, and when Eric does it, I don't get the feeling that it's put on. With JRobin, for some strange reason, I feel like it's a put on. But maybe I'm wrong. Either way, you know, fuck it. I'm done apologizing. I don't like his voice. I don't like his words. I don't like his thoughts. I don't like his actions. And fuck you, Matt Yester. Fuck you, Yester. Like, just fuck you, all of you. Sorry, I'm starting to get ramped up again. Man, this was cathartic. Sorry, folks. Damn it. Thank you, everybody in the live chat for this one. If you are interested, check this out. The conversation goes on. He gets into a conversation with Hogtie and somebody else. Obviously, Darth showed up at some time, which was inevitable. And things go from there. In my description, I had included that I was going to get into a thing about John Lee. I'll probably change the description. I've taken too much time indulging my anger. But the John Lee thing definitely wasn't going to get monetized anyway because the John Lee thing is about the Texas shooter, and it's fucked up and disgusting. The link's still in there if you want to take a look at it. It's on Tom Rabbit's channel. Most of you guys are aware of that. John Lee has lost his mind, and it's probably just going to get worse. And he's well on his way to becoming like JRobin and Darth Dawkins. I didn't think he was a contender for that kind of thing. I really didn't. He always came across as this kind of beleaguered, schlubby kind of guy in any of these conversations. But the video that Tom Rabbit had, he's hosting his own show, and he's starting to get just as overbearing, just as obnoxious, just as high-handed as any of these other assholes doing this shit. So he's been watching, he's been taking notes, and he's been learning. So, yeah. So, Jack Burton said, oh, I wanted to see my part. I don't know. Did he put that in here? Because this Dominic guy comes in, Hogtie talks with him. They bring James back? Oh my God, James, why? Why would you do that? Vant? I don't know who that is. Let's try this again. Let's try cycling through. Let's see here. There's Hogtie. Did Hogtie been in there once before? I guess Hogtie's... Is that Hogtie?
Audience. I will move you down to the audience. I gave you 3 warnings.
Oh my God, that's
it. He's gone.
That's got to stop. Matt Yester trying to play daddy coach. Oh fuck that shit. Oh God damn. See what I mean? These guys, like, these just like it's like I don't know if they had dads or whatever. They don't know how to be commanding or something like that. But they just come across as these like baby Nazgul or something, like, oh, be careful of me. I'm deadly. I'm tough. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're just cloying and fucking weird. Stop oozing on me. Creep. Let's see. No, I am actively interested. If Jack Burton's part. Oh, Jack is in here. All right, we'll go a little bit. We're going further. Thumbs up if you want this to go on longer. Not that it matters. Let's try it.
All right. So it looks like we have. I wanted to welcome up Jack because he's another keyboard warrior.
Jack is a keyboard warrior. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'll change the thing. Since this is all about JRobin now. We're not going to get into the John Lee stuff. We definitely can't now. But Jack Burton's part of the crew that does that show on Sundays, and I don't nearly do enough for that panel like I kind of agreed to. So I want to focus in on this because Jack has been known to make some great points. So let's do this.
I wonder, Jack, do you just want my attention or something? Is that why you keep doing
You
this? 'Cause
invited
another-
me
I mean,
up. What do you ask? Why are you asking me that?
Because I mean, I'm curious as to why you just like. I mean, do you just like mouthing off in the chat, or is it just because you know my policy at this point, right? So I mean,
Yeah, I think your
what's the
policy is
motivation?
ridiculous.
What's the motivation?
Yeah, what's wrong with typing out my thoughts instead of speaking about? Is one
I'm
manlier than
curious.
the other?
I'm curious. I'm
I'm
asking.
sure.
It's a good question. I like Jack Burton's question. What's that policy about? What's wrong with somebody writing what they think versus speaking it?
Curious to like how this hierarchy is established between typing and talking.
Jack.
Little
I can
smart
answer my
asses don't get
question.
away with crap.
Oh, we're gonna go
Look,
just call
this
each
is-
other names.
Immediately, Yester. Way to go, Yester. You just cashed it out for Jack for him. Way to go. If you were trying to take the high ground, you just handed it to Jack with that. You idiot. What the fuck? Like, if you're gonna stick with insults, then don't try to claim that you guys have moral high ground. Like, this is fucking stupid. Like, I understand that you Christian Nazgul think that the atheists automatically roll in like monsters from the deep, right? Like, we're deserving of all the scorn that we can get from the jump. Then if that's the case, then present yourselves accordingly. Do not try to engage. We're going to have an adult conversation and an equal exchange of ideas. Blah, 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 blah. No. Eat a dick. That is not what you're planning on doing. That's not it at all. You're here to pick on people and make fun of them. That's the only reason why you're fucking here, and that's the only reason you brought Jack Burton in there. And now that Jack's actually making a good point, what does Matt Yester have to do? The only thing that quarter wit can do. Insult him.
Names, Matt. Can
No,
you spit
you're
the
just
marbles
smart
out of your mouth
ass.
before you start doing that,
No,
please?
no, you're just smart ass. You don't actually
gosh.
rationally debate. You just keyboard warrior. You
I mean,
flounder in
rationally-
audio discussion.
So written text is not rational debate. Got it.
It
Well,
isn't.
Jack.
No, I mean
It
it's
isn't.
trolling.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind next time I'm reading the
Why
Bible.
don't you explain how it is the case that there's no God?
I don't hold to that claim.
Oh, so you believe you're a theist?
Yeah, I'm a deist.
Oh, okay. All right. Which God do
Okay,
you believe
yeah,
in?
yeah.
Oh, thank you for that, Jack. Thank you for that derisive laugh at Jester. Jester. Did I call him Jester? That was That was a slip.
Honey,
Which
Matt,
God do you believe
You want
in?
to play that little Skylar?
Which God do you believe in, Jack?
what, you want me
What the fuck? Oh, he said Skylar fiction. See, it takes me like 2 seconds to catch up with what he said. Because I thought he said Scar for faction.
to argue? I'll argue for atheism.
Jack,
Why is it
Jack,
there is
well,
no
God-
Christian God?
Jack,
Because it's incoherent.
Jack.
How is
Jack,
that?
Jack.
How's that
Hold on a
incorrect?
minute. Hold on. Let's make sure
It's as incoherent as Matt Yester's pronunciation.
we have it. Want to make sure it's a clear.
See if he
live
can
audio.
rein himself in. It's tough when they start
Yeah.
about just spurting.
Jack.
Oh, that's what he's doing? Who was the first one to resort to personal insults, Matt Yester? Who was the first one to insult whom? And now you're accusing him of quote-unquote spurging? Very sensitive, Matt. I'm not going to go on the whole thing. I've already used some politically incorrect terms here. I haven't used the R word yet, which I'm actually surprised. But I did drop the C word. Not cunt. Cunt's perfectly appropriate, but cocksucker. I don't like using that word, but thanks to years of watching Deadwood and then rewatching Deadwood, it just, when I'm enraged, cocksucker just comes out so easily. Ugh.
So
Is it canceled? Should I not say it? I don't know.
how is it the case that there is no God?
So yeah.
Is that what you're arguing for?
Well, no. You want that fuck?
Okay.
I'll argue that.
You told me you told me you'd argue for atheism. So how is it the case that there's no God?
Sure, the Christian God is incoherent.
How?
No. How is it the case that there is no God?
No God, right? I'm pointing at the
Yeah.
Christian
So
God.
there is nothing that is fundamental in the mind. How is that the case?
I'm
What
pointing
he's
at the Christian
asking you,
God.
Jack, is
I didn't
how
ask
is
you.
it
I'm not asking you
possible
about
that
the
there
Christian.
is
Hold
no
up.
God?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You're asking me
Hold on a
about
minute.
God.
Hold on a
You
minute.
believe
Hold on
that
a
God
minute.
is the Christian
Okay,
God.
Jack. Let's slow your roll, please. Okay. Atheism is a belief that no gods exist. I'm sure you're familiar with that term. I'm sure you're familiar with the definition of
Sure.
that term. Okay.
Hard global atheism,
Talking
anti-theism.
about so talking
21.
You want
about
me
the
to argue
Christian
that?
God, talking about the Christian God does not get you to atheism because there
Yes,
are
it does.
non-Christian. No, it does not because there are
Yes, it does.
non-Christians. Jack, if you don't stop over talking me, okay? There are non-Christians who are also not atheists. I'm also sure you're aware of that.
Yeah,
Okay?
and I
Because
have to
you're not
disprove
an
all that
atheist,
too.
are you?
I would have to disprove all.
Jack. You're not an atheist too, are you?
Correct.
But
I'm
you're
not
also
an
not a
atheist.
Christian.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Look out for number one. No, that's rebuke, and reprove. That's not actually rebuke and reprove. Reprove. Look out for number one. That would be someone who does not like rebuke and reprove.
Good. So, talking about Christianity does not get you to atheism. So, I want to know from you,
Yes, it
how is it
does.
the case?
It does. It does if Christianity is asserting the Christian God, because the Christian God is inevitably the only God that can exist. It necessarily has to be the Christian God. It can't just be any God. It necessarily is Yahweh. It necessarily is Jesus. And if it's not, then it could be any other God.
How
It's
is it the
just one
case?
step along the way.
How is it? Okay, if you talk over me again, you're gonna forfeit your right to even be in this room. Okay, so do it again. Do it, please.
Well, I don't
I
No,
beg
no,
of
respect
no.
you
you,
to
I
do
so I'll
it.
want him
happily do
I want
that.
to ask
Okay,
him a
all
question
right.
too.
Applause to Jack. I don't respect you, so I'll happily do that. Props.
Bro.
Go ahead. No,
I want to
he's
ask him
out
a
of here.
question too, bro. Don't
He's
let
out
him
of
leave.
here.
Hold on,
I,
bro. Hold on,
I
bro.
kicked him out.
Said he wasn't
He's not
here,
worthy of being in this room. Okay.
If that's the case, yeah, then yeah, that's sad. But man, it just the combination of his arrogance, his ignorance, and it's just his just overall just the fuckery of the man, combined with that just weird country slurring that he's doing. Like, I mean, it's like Boomhauer or something. It's the total package that just bothers me. And then on top of it, he's just a conceited, sanctimonious prick. I'll target any weakness that I can. So, and also on top of that, he does the same thing too. These guys punch down on fucking absolutely everybody. So if they come in here and demonstrate any kind of weakness at all, kick him right between the legs. Any chance you get.
There was not going
I
to be.
wanted to ask him a question.
Don't worry, it's
Is
Jack.
there any other atheists?
So that was it. So yeah, Jack didn't last long, and they had to get rid of him. So yeah, which they usually do. I don't even know why they bother. Like Jack consistently. This is one thing that I have to give him props for. Jack consistently makes these guys sound like. I mean, he really makes them sound like morons, right? Like I think when I go in there watching a video, listening to myself, which I hate doing because I don't like the sound of my own voice. When I hear myself talking to some of these people, it almost sounds like when I'm having an exchange with them that I am getting, like in this case, giving them the benefit of the doubt and giving credence to their view. When I hear Jack come in there, I hear like absolutely no fucks given, let's go. Everything that you say is probably going to be stupid, right? I appreciate that. I wish I could put that off, and that's probably going to be more of my goal. Like, and I can see now why people get this way. Like I always wanted to try to avoid doing this kind of thing. Like you shouldn't get into these kind of gladiator things, but with these fucking people, you kind of have to meet them where they want. You kind of have to give them what they're looking for. You don't have to give them what they're looking for, but I think that this is where guys like JRobin and Matt Yester flourish, right? They want to set up this switcheroo. We're going to set up this room where you can come in and have these deep conversations and an exchange of ideas. And what we're actually going to do is bring you in here so that we can quote unquote expose, because that's their favorite verb next to reveal, expose the lying, duplicitous nature of atheism, right? And we're going to use you to do it because you're just a means to an end, right? The end is to talk about how shitty atheism is. And by extension, you're a piece of shit for believing it, right? And you chose to believe it, so it's all on you, right? Because they don't believe in doxastic and voluntarism because they're morons. So you're obviously at fault for actually thinking that this is viable, and we're going to show how crappy this is. Ergo, we've shown how stupid you fucking are. And so once we've exposed atheism, we've exposed you as an atheist. Therefore, we can wipe our asses with you and discard you. And by the way, enjoy hell when you get there. Our God is all loving and all merciful. Fucked up, right? It's totally fucked up, right? When they do this kind of stuff, the only rational way, I think, the only appropriate way, I should say, to deal with this level of discourse is just to go in guns blazing. Go in there and give them the. They think that when they got an atheist in there, they've got a tiger by the tail. Give them the claws, tooth and claw. Give it to them. Like just go after them, especially these guys, right? Because they don't want to have conversations about ideas. That's off the table now. They've taken it off the table. This is about personalities for them. Jack Burton, he's an atheist, therefore he's a troll. Jefferson Spatchcock, atheist, therefore a troll. Jay, the Joker face, he's a troll too. They're the Spatchcock twins. They're both trolls. Gonna go for it. Any of these other guys, J.L. Warren, Bridge the Divide, he's a troll, right? It doesn't matter if you have a retort. It doesn't matter if you can make a good point. In fact, if you make a good point, if you score a direct hit, you give them a question or an issue that they can't refute and they can't just either glibly dismiss or hand wave away, you're even more of a troll. So make it about them. They're making it about atheists and our personalities. So as far as I'm concerned, what we need to do more often is do what Jack did, right? But maybe dial it up a little bit more. Make it about their Jesus, right? Go after him, right? The reason why you had people talking about God being a baby killer and Jesus being a jerk and the Old Testament God being a dickhead and a megalomaniac and a genocidal freak and a misogynist and all these other kinds of things. These things that Christians are like, you just don't understand the Bible in context, so you wouldn't be insulting my God that way. I'm not insulting your God. I'm just saying that seems to be his characteristic, right? Those are the characteristics that the God is described in a lot of the books of the Old Testament. If you don't want that, then maybe you have to do something to defend it. These guys don't want to do that now, but they want to put everything back on the non-believer. You need to tell me why your worldview is viable. Fuck off with that shit. That has nothing to do with it. Worldviews aren't viable or inviolable. Has nothing to do with it. It's just epistemology. There's plenty of things that I could believe are true that aren't. That doesn't make my worldview, quote unquote, for whatever that's worth, lack viability. That's just stupid. There are things that I'm psychologically convinced are true. They may not actually be the case, but I might be leaning towards or totally convinced that they're real. And there's plenty of other things that are not that way. But these guys seem to think that everybody arrives to the same conclusions about any religious belief. You did the math, you went through it, you looked at all the deductive and inductive arguments for and against God, and reached the rational conclusion that God must be true. No one does that. That's not how it works. That's not even how Christianity even presents itself, right? It's supposed to be presented as an act of forgiveness, as an opportunity to become one with God, to get your sins saved. God, even given my levels of frustration right now, actual Christianity, and some of the kinder, gentler ways it's being put in, sounds like a hell of a salve, a nice balm right now, compared to the weaponized bullshit these guys are chumming out online all the time. What about their Christianity is inviting to anybody? Nothing. So, yeah, everybody be like Jack, and may the wings of liberty never lose a feather. All right, and given that it is Memorial Day, I think that's a pretty good place to end it. Everybody have a great holiday if you can. If you're working, do the best you can. Try to have fun anyway. I'm sorry I didn't bring anybody in. I'm sorry this went on too long, and I apologize for ranting so much. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not apologizing anymore. No, honestly, if anybody's got criticisms about this particularly wrathy, ranty one, don't be afraid to send me comments. Don't be afraid to make comments. If you got anything direct that you want to bring up with me, because I did go on a tear for this one, don't be afraid to email me. Send me something to jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. If you got any questions, criticisms, thoughts, points of contention, anything like that. I appreciate the criticism. I appreciate the perspective. So, and as always, I love the comments that you guys give. The live chat on my channel is always great. It makes it worth doing these streams. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support as always. And I hope you guys have a great day and a great weekend, a great holiday. Hopefully you get to grill and eat a little too much, drink a little too much, sin a little too much, but nothing that you can't walk off, in 24 to 48 hours. So with that, thank you all again. Good luck. Take care. And I am out. Let me see here.